Howdy, howdy. We are live on another Friday night for the weekly Tex-Trek show. We're going to be talking about not just one, but two episodes of Star Trek. This week we have a Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3 finale to discuss, as well as a Star Trek Prodigy Midseason premiere. So that's interesting to have a mid-season premiere 1 year after your season began. It's like you might as well just call it Season 2 at that point. But
yeah,
whatever.
I'm at this point, I was glad they kind of retreaded some stuff because I was like, I don't remember what happened. This was almost a year ago.
Yeah, it's been a while. But yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm joined by two wonderful people, so we're just gonna go ahead and get the show started. I'm Fathery.
I'm Aaron.
I'm Rachel.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 214th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek, old and new. And tonight we are talking about both Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3 finale, The Stars at Night, written by Mike McMahan and directed by Jason Zurek, as well as Star Trek Prodigy Season 1, Episode 11, Asylum, written by Kevin and Dan Hageman and directed by Stephen N. Chang and Sung Shin. And before we get into that, I just want to give a big thank you to all of the Tex-Trek Patreon supporters out there. Starfleet Boy, Cake is Eternal, Gay Clevin Lundstrom, Crazy Dutchy, Joanne Robertson, Quarksbar, John Dawes, and our anonymous supporters. Thank you all so much. And to celebrate your support, we're going to continue to do our monthly watch-alongs that we do every month. We're going to have one on November 15th. We're watching the Discovery episode Forget Me Not, where they revisit the Trill homeworld. So I think that'll be fun. We haven't done a Discovery episode in those monthly watch-alongs yet. We kind of jump around the different shows. If people want to check that out, please feel free to pitch in on the Patreon. You can come in as little as $2 a month, and we'll let you into all the watch parties. There's some other perks if you want to be more generous, but yeah, we will let you into the watch parties if you come in at that $2 a month minimum. And if you're unable to help financially but still want to support the channel, you can always subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I promised I will sing my least favorite song, Star Trek Enterprise's Faith of the Heart. If we can reach that goal, we're terrifyingly close, so I'm gonna have to practice singing before long. That's going to be a lot of fun. If you enjoy that song, if you're like me and you hate it, you can just like not listen to it. I don't get the option because I have to sing it, but
it's like a love-hate relationship.
Yeah, well, if people just want to see what kind of tune I carry, or what kind of how good of a singer I'll be, that'll all be on display for everyone to either enjoy, or if you have good taste in music, you'll hate it. Enough about all that stuff, though. We got all the housekeeping out of the way. There's so much content to talk about, with these two episodes. So we're gonna do Lower Decks first, and then we'll switch gears to Prodigy. But yeah, let's just start off with The Stars at Night, which they're big and bright here, deep in the heart of Texas.
Yeah,
is the song.
I swear, I have a Pavlovian response to clap every time I hear the phrase.
Yeah.
I'm like, Jesus, I need to stop saying it. I'm gonna start clapping. Clap.
Yes, that's like if you're from Texas, like me and Rachel, then you're. This is like in your DNA. You have to clap whenever you hear that.
I went to Texas State University. We played that at my graduation. The band. That's the song we played. We played like deep in the heart of Texas.
Well, I'm
My
gonna.
mom's. Oh, sorry. My grandmother's from North Dakota, and for some reason she loved that song. So it's like I've always remembered that since I've been a little kid.
Yeah, I didn't know that
That's
people even
very
like would know
random.
what that song is. Like outside of Texas, I thought like that had to be explained, but
I knew people knew it outside of Texas, but nobody cares about it outside of Texas.
Yeah,
Except your grandmother.
it's also weird to have
Yeah.
something that's like, oh, it's one of my favorite songs. I'm like, okay, that's
I don't know that like
sure.
it's anyone in Texas's favorite song, but we have to love it and it's in our blood. I don't like.
Yep.
But yeah, you can like go into a bar here in Austin and just like stick your head in the door and just yell like the stars at night are big and bright, and then the whole place they'll just do the.
It's like the Friends theme song. That's like
Yeah,
it's like that response. That like for the rest of the world, that's what it's like. And I wanted to
Now I want to see that
at my high
edited
school
together.
graduation. They didn't have like drums doing the beat or anything, and we all just did it. We all just clapped, and they knew we would. Like,
Well, I'm going to quickly recap the episode by reading the official synopsis, and I'll kind of expand it up with spoilers. But the official synopsis reads, the Cerritos crew must prove their worth in a mission race. So, yeah, we pick up where we left off last week. The Cerritos has to prove it can out second contact the USS Leto. They are doing some resupply and outpost construction and stuff like that. But Admiral Buenamigo turns out to be a badmiral. He turns out to be no bueno. He's not a good friend, which a lot of us saw coming.
yeah,
And
I feel like we were supposed to see it coming, though, right? That they
Yeah.
assumed we would. Like,
yeah, I don't. I think they tried to play fair and like put some clues in there. But
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't
Well-
work out for the Texas class. The Cali classes unite together to blow up the evil AI ships, and Mariner rejoins the crew and comes back to the Cerritos. So, Aaron, I know that Lower Decks has been a huge part of your Trek fandom the last few years. So,
Yep.
just with this third season now complete, I'd just like to ask you, what was kind of your broad impression of the season 3 finale?
I really liked it. I think there was a gentle play at the Picard season 1 finale when all of the same ships showed up, but this is how you do it. It's kind of like I actually had a huge like emotional response when that all happened, especially because I live in California, so I know like all the places that they're mentioning. So just hearing that and just seeing all those ships show up and Mariner getting her her Starfleet back basically, and so yeah, I quite enjoyed it. I think it was a really good cap to the end. And even though there is a cliffhangery kind of little thing at the end, it had a satisfying wrap up. Like all those little threads of, Rutherford's implant and Badgie and all that stuff. It all kind of came together. And Buenamigo got his, well, I guess he actually got way more than he probably deserved. I don't know.
Well, Rachel, what about you? What was your stance on the stars at night?
I really liked the episode. I love the battle at the end. I like that it wrapped everything up really nicely, and it's everything about compared to and I think it's because Lower Decks has been on the air for a couple years now. They everything about the finale, all the emotional all the emotional payoff had to do with Lower Decks, not like bringing something else in from another franchise. Like even like last season it was like still to do with the Packlids, or the season before it was like the Titan coming in, but this was like, no, it's only stuff that's from, if you've watched this past 3 seasons of this show and you're now invested in these characters for themselves.
100%, yeah.
Cool. Well, as far as I go, I liked the episode. I didn't love it, but I really enjoyed it, and there were moments of it I did love. I don't want to say I was mixed on it because that makes it sound like, you know, there were good things and bad things,
Yeah.
in my opinion. But I'm kind of mixed between like, okay, there were some things I thought were like a little okay, but like a little underwhelming. But then there's also like moments that like I really loved. I just thought that Buen Amigo himself, like I appreciate the twists that they put in there, but I was hoping for something a little bit more interesting than just you know, typical Starfleet Badmiral. And you know, like I felt like his motivation was like a little weak. He's just like, oh yeah, he just felt like it was too hard to make a name for himself, so he thought the Texas class would secure his legacy. But
I do understand what you're, because I kept expecting like, oh, they're gonna do more with it. I was like, oh no, okay, he's just a Badmiral. But I probably didn't have time because they were setting up that battle, which obviously took time.
But the battle, I actually like. I really liked that. That, like Rachel was saying, that it did. You know, it wasn't the Titan showing up. Like they even like joke about like, oh, we're gonna rendezvous with the Titan. You know, it wasn't something like that. And they mentioned Picard in there, so it's kind of setting it up like, oh, is this going to be like Patrick Stewart showing up on the show? But like no, it was the California classes themselves.
It never even occurred to me that the idea that Patrick Stewart would show up.
Well, we were kind of joking around about it last week, so it was on my mind. But
I haven't been here the last couple of weeks because I haven't had a computer, and now I do again.
Well, welcome back. Welcome back aboard. But just that idea of like, yeah, it's just all like the dumb, goofy, unimportant ships, like the California class, all of them, you know, coming together to save the day. It's really true to the overall message of Lower Decks, just as a show. Sometimes like, you know, like the unimportant people, you know, they're like the little background ensigns that normally don't get the spotlight in Star Trek, that they need to be incorporated and they need to be involved, because sometimes they're the ones that have the answer. Which is kind of the entire point of Lower Decks, I guess. And you know, this episode, it didn't impress me as much as the season 1 or season 2 finale, but honestly, I think it would be an adequate series finale. I think it kind of you know, would have been a decent way of ending the show. That, I don't know if that kind of like contradicts myself saying that it's my least favorite of the 3 season finales, but I think it would be like the most appropriate way to end. If there was one of them was
doesn't wrap up, or they're not very good at wrapping up their finales or their series,
or they
so
don't
this was
understand
at least
like
it would be
those series.
Exactly.
Because at least compared to, like, I'll just throw Enterprise under the bus, at least this finale would have been about Lower Decks.
Exactly.
Like, but I'm glad it's not the series finale. But
me too, and there's still some things unresolved. You know, I need to find out what's going on with Section 31, William Boimler, and you know, that there's a post-credit tease that a lot of people didn't know about. A lot of people didn't catch it. So,
a lot of it, because
nobody's ever used to that. We don't have those.
We don't do that in Star. I used to brag about it. Like, Star Trek doesn't do that.
That I love the content on Paramount Plus. Using Paramount Plus can be a nightmare, though. And a lot of the TV apps don't let you watch all the credits. They immediately.
I was saying, imagine the credits probably just shrunk down, right? Like,
the only reason is that I knew is that someone had tweeted, by the way, there's a post-credit scene, because I watched it during my lunch break, and I made sure to not let it skip.
Yeah,
I think Mike McMahan tweeted something that was like implying that there was going to be one, but without directly saying it, like the night before, day before, like, make sure you watch all the way to the end. You know, like. Those people in the credits are important, kind of a thing. Like, okay.
Yeah. But also, skipping credits is kind of shitty for that reason to begin with. Their credits are there for a reason.
Yeah, I've noticed that in some streaming services, when they minimize the credits, like a lot of shows and stuff, they'll have like scenes that take place like during the credits.
Oh my god, it drives me crazy because stuff will do different streaming services will do that for Frasier. And there's always like a silent like comedy clip going on, and I was like, the show's not over. I'm still watching that.
Yeah.
I think they even made fun of that on The Simpsons like a decade ago or two or whatever, where the TV, like on broadcast TV, it would like tilt and like go to like an angle and shrink down.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, the other show is starting in the background already. So it's like, all these people are really important, and then it was like minimized down to this.
I've seen super fast scrolling PBS. is that they legally have to show the credits, the opening credits for Friends, but to cut it down, they put side by side a scene and then the credits. Because apparently you don't want to watch the Friends theme song, even though like it's a very popular song. But also, I was like, what's happening?
That's weird.
Well, let's go ahead and get into our episode breakdown, and we'll just go through the episode beat by beat, starting off with that beginning at Douglas Station with the Cerritos in for repairs. It's kind of Strange New World style. We open with like one of the crew members giving a log entry. That's how like every episode of Strange New Worlds would open with like someone giving a log entry. So we get this Ransom's first officer log talking about how they took a pounding from the Breen and they took a pounding in the media. Everyone's impressed with the Texas class ship, and then Carol's being grilled at Starfleet Command, and Buen Amigo is trying to make the case that the Texas class should replace the Cali class. So this kind of plays into the idea they set up last week of the automation versus the organic touch, the living being there, which I guess has some real life
there's
applications.
Yeah, there's definitely like for instance, the Walmart by me is like all self-checkout.
Yeah, I hate using those things. Like I don't know, it just feels like a pain to. I get some people like they are more shy than I am and don't want to like talk to a human being, but I'm like
I'll use them sometimes, but I don't want to be forced to use it.
Yeah. I hate
half
that.
The
like
time they complain that you haven't put the thing in the right place, and it's just like
right.
Okay,
it's like
I could have just
so
gone
much
to a
work.
person and done it, and yeah, exactly. Don't
but then it's annoying because also if you want to buy anything that requires an ID, then you have to like scan it, wait for an employee to come there. Like it's almost like this process can't be automated completely.
They always have somebody standing there too, just to watch. I guess so you don't walk away with stuff.
But they set up the stakes, right off the bat by having the crew being worried and Boimler, having the gossip from Hans Fedorov. We have his first name now, Hans Fedorov, the towel guy, who's apparently the gossip king, and he's always right. But he told Boimler that the Philosian and Tactical's girlfriend's Vedic heard that Starfleet Command is shuttering the California class. So,
I laughed when it got to Vedic. It's like that's what I was like, where is this Vedic getting this information?
Yeah, maybe there's like a someone in that Starfleet Command conference room who's like in the Bajoran religion, and they go to the same. Maybe it's like Catholics who like go and confess to like a priest.
I mean, maybe.
Although you're not supposed to share that information.
No,
so shame
you 100% is an ethical like violation. I wonder if it's like
people in Star Trek tend to share information they really shouldn't anyway.
That's fair.
Let's talk about your medical history.
It's like how it's like the real military. There are like military chaplains. I was like, do they have like military medics or like the co-options?
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
That would be cool.
But they set up this thing with Boimler and Shax where he's doing the impersonations and he hurts Shax's feelings. And I kind of thought this was, interesting that they chose this to be the thing Boimler does in the finale. I almost kind of felt like they abandoned the bold Boimler thing a few episodes ago. Like after
I was thinking that too. I was like,
he won big at Quarks, and that was kind of like the last time he was talking about like being bold Boimler, and that was way back in episode 6. He hasn't really done much with that since then. So I was wondering if like in the Paradoxus episode, if that was supposed to be like his the culmination of like the bold Boimler stuff, like when he has that conversation with Sulu and figures out, what's the important way of how to live life and stuff.
That makes sense.
I guess they kind of pay it off here when he like yells at everyone on the bridge to listen to Shax. I just kind of wish that they would have taken a moment to comment on that and tie it all together.
Yeah, I get
stuff
why
felt a little out of place to me
because like there's a lot going on, so it was hard to. Because like both Mariner and Rutherford especially were like having these big like character moments.
Right. Yeah. I think they probably could have like squeezed in one or two lines of dialogue, but there's a few other things where, another big one. I'll mention later, but it's like, man, I really wanted to see like what these two characters would say to each other, and we kind of skip over that conversation. But yeah, I'm just kind of curious in season 4 what Boimler's arc will be, if they try to do something different, if they're going to continue to build on the bold Boimler thing or move on to something else.
The board Boimler.
The Borg Boimler. Yeah, that's always a possibility. Well, I think perhaps, the one thing that they haven't resolved here, like I mentioned, is that Section 31 William Boimler. So maybe Bradward will be like, I got to stop my transporter clone. He's doing shady Section 31 stuff. Or something else that ties into him. But this idea of like the second contact race, I love it, even though it's kind of ridiculous that like
what is that even? What is that? I was like, I don't know. I just made it up on the spot.
I was like, that is a ridiculous way to solve this problem. Proceed. I'm amused.
Yes, like especially when one of the planets, like they don't even like the Cerritos doesn't even get there in time to resupply them. But it's like, you know what? It's a fun, dramatic vehicle to show the competition.
I don't feel like every planet would take that kindly to them just like beating stuff down and not coming down.
Yeah.
Especially if they haven't been there in like 15 years or so. Because it was kind of reminding me of I gotta get the name of it. I want to say it's called Operation Christmas Drop, which is a real thing that the Air Force does for the islands surrounding in the Pacific, specifically surrounding Guam. But I was like, yeah, they do this every year, and like they know it's coming. Like they know what day it's happening. They don't just like show up one day and we're like, we're parachuting stuff down to you today. Surprise.
Yeah, it's kind of like what Amazon wanted to do originally when they wanted to do drone delivery. Just have like drones come to your doorstep and stop and drop off your stuff.
Already so much of a problem. That is like the dumbest.
I just imagine it like going through my window or something like that too. Like it's like the drone doesn't stop right or something. Cracks. It doesn't.
It would look like owls in Harry Potter, but like mechanical.
Yeah.
But I think it's cool that they've had like all these years, like people kind of complain about some people don't take kindly to being stationed on a California class ship, like it's kind of a low level, unimportant ship. For most of the show, Captain Freeman was trying to get a promotion to a capital ship. I guess she gave up on that at the end of season 2, and this was kind of her, instead of trying to leave the California class behind, I want to make the California class's role more important, and that's why she was pushing for the project Swing By. But I thought it was kind of cool here to see like all these people.
It's just like logical to have done that. Like the fact, like, does there not a program like this already? That's not good.
Just step out, like just check on them every so often.
Yeah.
There should be. Like,
yeah.
Was it Mission Logs who talked about this back when they were covering TOS years and years ago? But they were talking about like, is there someone who like goes around following the Enterprise to follow up on all these planets? Because it kind of seems like some of these people we need to follow up with them. So
the people who go out and
apparently
they drop some
it's these
buoys,
people.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh, what's 23rd century or whatever Cali class?
But yeah, so the Swing By mission, obviously, it sounds like a good idea. And it's a little disturbing that Starfleet hasn't been doing something like that all along.
I was like, we have questions.
But I like seeing everyone being like, you know what? Like, I like being on the Cerritos, and I don't want the whole California class line to be decommissioned. And so I thought that was, especially like, Rutherford, when he was like, yeah, I don't know what I would do without the Cerritos. But he was, I guess they set up that he's really intrigued by the coding on the Texas class ship. So we had speculated a lot last week that Buen Amigo might turn out to be bad, that he was setting up the Cerritos for failure. And just there's a track record in science fiction of that when you put the AI in charge of anything with like weapons, it doesn't work out too good for you. So I was thinking, okay, we haven't done Badgie in a while. We just had Peanut Hamper and Agamus show up. The other naughty AI would be Badgie. So I was kind of thinking about this early on that like, okay, yeah, I think Badgie might come into play somehow in this episode, and especially when Rutherford was like, oh, there's something familiar about this code.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I don't know that I initially thought Badgie, and I was like, oh, he lost his memory. It's that. Like, it's something to do with that.
But I guess you want to get into like the actual race. You know, they start off by visiting the planet from the first episode of the show, Galardon, right? Is that how you say it? With like the little pig people, and that's where the spider cows are.
Galadorians, yeah.
Yeah, the animation was really cool here when we see them build this. I don't know what it was exactly. I guess they call it a power plant later, but when the Texas class ship shows up and just immediately is able to beam down this completely built facility, and that's a kind of a cool idea of like. I assume the way that this works is it kind of incorporates the replicator with the transporter. So instead of just, replicating something on the ship, you just replicate it beamed down at its destination.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason you couldn't incorporate that into like a crewed ship that has people on it, though. So,
that is true. Have them like, hey, we beamed this down for you, but we'll still come and talk to you and treat you like people.
Yeah, we'll still come and check in on all of y'all and have like that
friendly. Make sure you didn't start worshiping Landry again.
Yeah. I got to keep an eye on the Batons on Beta 3.
The Texas class would have been great for like Starfleet places, like they're any kind of outpost or whatever, because they don't necessarily need to talk to Starfleet or anybody, any kind of Federation representative. Right. Like just swing by and drop stuff off. Like,
and we know that there are some robot ships in use from not only from the animated series. Is it more trouble, more tribbles, or more tribbles, more trouble? I always get that mixed up. But
more tribbles, more trouble, I think.
Okay, but they have robot ships there, and then A Strange New Worlds in their season finale, they had the robot ships there too. So
more tribbles, more troubles.
So I assume like they handle like those kind of delivery drop off type things that wouldn't require additional action.
I imagine the grain ships that they had in the animated series are those ships that probably still required a human crew to get the stuff off of the ship.
But I guess that's another reason why I think like Buen Amigo's motivations are a little weak, because it's like, okay, I guess you're gonna save lives if you replace the California class with these Texas class ships, but I don't know. Like, don't you think like there's some things where it just makes sense just to have like, actual, I don't want to say human being because that's speciesist in Star Trek.
People. They tell people.
Just have like a person there or someone who's like able to
a diplomat?
Make decisions. And then you get in the conversation of like, well, what if the AI is advanced as Data or, the Doctor on Voyager or something like that. But I guess Star Trek,
like all of Starfleet Command is just like, sure, let's take the word of this one person and we get rid of a whole class of ships. Like, that decision was all made way too fast. I know it's a TV show, so it's like I think it had to be done like that. But they could have started if they started that storyline like mid-season, where we started to see the Texas class and slowly it was like, oh, it's taking over. That would make more sense.
I think to be able to do that on Lower Decks, we need a longer season than we currently have.
Yeah.
I honestly, for a half-hour show, I think 10 episodes is a little short.
They get a lot into 10 episodes.
They do get a lot in. I'm impressed. I think compared to all the other sitcoms that I watch that have short seasons, I think Lower Decks handles the fact that they don't have enough screen time the best.
Yeah, the episodes always feel big, and they're always like these self-contained stories that, and I think just I've mentioned this on the show before, but I think just in animation, your brain is looking at like simpler images, and you just process information faster. Like things are more clear. Everything's like a little bit more obvious. a lot of times if you're shooting things in live action, to show someone's upset, you kind of like have to like linger on them a little bit and like show them like get angry in the face. But
like you can be so extreme in expressions in animation,
right.
and if you like did that in like on a real person, it would look insane.
Right, in animation, you can just like draw an angry face, and then the brain of your audience member like recognizes it immediately. So in some ways, animation's like more efficient and doesn't require as much time. Unless you kind of get like that fast pace. A lot of people have spoke about the fast paced nature of Lower Decks and like all the jokes they can pack into short little scenes, or like all the action. Like I think Lower Decks does action incredibly well, and
it does. It has amazing battles. For the fact that I was like, I'm watching the like weird comedy one. Like I don't like these are like some of the best space battles I've seen in a while.
All the modern shows, Prodigy is really beautiful, and all the live action stuff. It's one thing that they've consistently have been doing in this modern era of Star Trek is it's all very well polished. Visually, it looks like you see like the production value.
When season 3 of Discovery was starting, my brother at the time worked for a show that doesn't exist anymore because it was on Quibi, which doesn't exist anymore. But they interviewed the actor. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but the actor who plays Book. And so he saw a clip of Star Trek. Yes. Of Star Trek Discovery, and he was like, "Wait, that's how the TV show looks?" And I was like, "Yeah, it looks like a movie every week. It's insane."
Yeah, and they get better. Like they've added like so much more detail to Lower Decks. Like season 3, I've really started to notice. Like if there's close up of people's hands, they have like fingernails added now, and like the lighting gets more dynamic every season. And I think they add, at least for like their main characters like Boimler and Mariner, like they add new like facial expressions and animations and stuff. So the show continues to look better and better.
They do lighting really well, and too it's a flat design, but they're like one blurry light colored line on it. It's like, ooh, suddenly it's highlighted from one side, and it gives it a lot of depth.
I'd be curious to take some similar looking scenes from like season 1 and compare them to like season 3.
Yeah,
that would be. I think that's really interesting to do with like animated shows in general, because unless
I know the intro has evolved. Like
the intro definitely has evolved.
Yeah. So I think it was last week. I think Starfleet Boy suggested that in season 4 they'll add the Brain Interceptor to that Borg battle in the opening credits, because they always add ships every year.
Yeah.
So and now they have the model of the Brain Interceptor. So they're I know it's more complicated than this, but basically the animators in Vancouver can just drag and drop it into that battle, right?
I know that's not what she's doing, but it kind of looks like she's playing Tetris on that.
On the tricorder. Yeah. Tindy makes the discovery of a possible life sign. I love the way they handle this on LT358, because they don't have no one like gets mad at her. No one's like, oh my god, like we're gonna lose the race because of you. They're all like, you did the right thing. Tiana, like the grumpiest person on the show, is like, not your fault, kid. These these readings can confuse the shit out of a tricorder, or whatever she says. But
I was like, no, this is why they're like, no, this is why we have those rules, to make sure we don't do anything like unethical.
Even Freeman, who's pushing so hard to save the California class, but she was like, yeah, of course, take your time to scan for intelligent life. Of course, she uses this against Boy and Amigo after after their failure to show up to Augmenic 9 in time, when the planet phases in briefly and they're unable to be resupplied. But yeah, after they lose the race and Boy and Amigo is kind of celebrating with his victory cigar and his evil laugh, that's when Freeman is like, no, like less like, this is messed up. Like your ship clearly wouldn't take a moment to care about like this possibility of intelligent life, and that's why we need people with empathy and compassion and a higher level of reasoning,
and not a ship with daddy issues.
And not a ship with daddy issues, because we find out that it was Rutherford who coded the ship.
How old is Rutherford? That like.
Well, he said, okay, we can figure this out pretty easily, because we know the show's currently in 2381. He said it was a decade ago when he was a first year at the academy.
Okay, 'cause I think I thought Rutherford was younger, and then they cut to
Yeah,
when Amigo
I did
here. And I was
too.
like, wait, how long has it been since this all happened?
So when he was a first year at the academy, he would have been 17 or 18.
Mhm.
So let's assume he was like 17. So he's like 27 or 28 now. I think this explosion probably was in the year 2370 because of the comm badge that Buen Amigo is wearing when we see him as a lieutenant commander. He has the TNG era comm badge, which everything we've ever seen in Star Trek from 2371 onward, they have the Voyager style comm badge. So I think this might have been like this would have been like around the time of like TNG season 7 or Voyager season 1 or Star Trek Generations or DS9 season 3. It's kind of all like around the same time.
I need to go back and rewatch the first season of Lower Decks, because in my head that like Rutherford was a fairly recent thing that he had his implants.
Right. That's something else I've been confused about. So the theory that I'm going with is that he had an implant and then upgraded to like a new Vulcan one right before the first episode.
Either that makes sense, or that maybe like it took them a while to like he was in a coma for a while. But that still seems like a long time to have been in a coma.
Yeah. Or Buen Amigo just ages really quickly.
But yeah, Buen Amigo goes from lieutenant commander to admiral in a decade, so that's kind of impressive.
Oh, you know what? That would gray you. That sounds stressful.
Yeah.
that's when he hit his glass ceiling that he was complaining about. But yeah, this is where I guess I felt like a little underwhelmed that like, okay, Buen Amigo, like that's it. Like you don't have like anything else. Like I guess I was hoping for like a little bit something more interesting here with him.
Yeah.
And I just because we named the show Tex-Trek and everything, I was proud. Like I spotted, in the first episode of the season, I was like, oh, he has like a little model of the Alamo. Like he must be from Texas. I hope he's not an asshole. But he turned out to be an asshole.
He turned out to be an asshole and named his evil ships the Texas class.
Yes. But
I was like, I don't know. I was like, right now I'm currently glad none of the evil ships were called the Austin, I guess.
Like, yeah, they're named after the naming convention is a little weird because like with the California class, they're all named after the smaller cities. There's not like there's not a Los Angeles or a San Francisco.
Right.
But like with the Texas class, they do. Alito is a tiny little town. I've only ever heard of them because they're like very good at high school football. They have like a really like I think they might have won state more than any other 5A high school in Texas history, which high school football is a big deal here.
I need to because people outside of Texas are not going to understand. They treat it like college football.
Yeah, it's a big like Friday Night Lights. There's a movie and a TV show about it. But it's a small town, and then Dallas is our second largest city, and Corpus Christi is probably our fourth or fifth largest. So that's a little all over the place. But when they turn evil, is it the same voice actor who plays Buen Amigo? Is he voicing the evil computer?
The voice sounded familiar, but I couldn't place it.
Because at first I thought it might have been the Badgie voice actor. But
for a second I thought it was Jeffrey Combs, and then I realized it wasn't.
But I think it's the Buen Amigo guy who he's the father of the Rock Talk voice actor.
Okay.
Yeah, his name is Carlos, and her name is Riley, and I forget how to say the last name, but yeah, he doesn't last very long. He gets killed by his own hubris, his own creation, thinking he could control this thing. Yeah, that line of dialogue, I'll burn your heart in the fire. That also felt like a little like underwhelming to me. I was like,
but that's what Badgie said like back in whatever season 1.
Okay, I didn't remember that. Okay,
yeah,
that makes more sense then.
Yeah,
but the ship battle was cool. I like the animation of like the station being attacked, and it still feels weird to me that they chose to make like the Texas class like these a smaller ship. It's not a tiny ship because the Cerritos is actually pretty big. But
I was like, that's not the thing the thing people usually go for Texas. Everything's
Right.
bigger, kind of.
And so I think I almost like at the end when like they're all like surrounding the tiny little ship, I almost wonder like would that have been more impactful if it was like a bunch of smaller ships surrounding like a big badass large galaxy class size ship,
Mhm.
and you kind of felt like like a whole bunch of Davids can take down a Goliath, and I think that might have
Yeah.
had like that would have tied in like like their message of like all the little guys sticking together. But
Okay.
I still think it's a cool design, so I'm not going to
According
harp on it too
to
much.
Wikipedia, it is the same actor playing Admiral Amigo and the
Okay.
and the ship.
Okay, because he kind of has some of like that Tejano accent on like Corpus Christi, like he stresses like the Christi.
Maybe
like,
that because I had like I don't know if you saw someone on Twitter was like it's interesting he had like in their head like more of a Mexican accent and then a Texas accent. And I was like that accent is very prevalent in Texas.
Yeah, and I like that. I like that they just didn't make him like some old white guy with like a redneck accent. Yeah, it's like
the Southern twang is not as common as you think. Well, but neither father or I have that accent, and we both live in Texas.
I used to have it. If
Okay.
I can pull up some like old YouTube content I made in like 15 years ago that is where I have a much stronger Texas accent than I have now. But yeah, like this guy reminds me, like I know a lot of like Mexican dads that
exactly
look and sound like Buen Amigo. Like
I was like, you reminds me of hanging out with my friend's dad.
Yeah. Yeah, it also kind of made it suck that he turned out to be a jerk because he felt kind of familiar.
Your friend's evil dad?
No, my friend's dad would give me a place to stay during the snowpocalypse.
Oh, well, then there you go. It's the mirror universe, Buen Amigo. It's the good one.
There we go. Yeah, let's make this guy be from the mirror universe, like Lorca, and then we could be like, find the prime universe Buen Amigo. Like he's out there somewhere, right?
Oh, that'd be great.
Hashtag Prime Buen Amigo is landing. But let's talk about the Mariner archaeology stuff. I knew this was going to be in the episode because I remembered seeing in the trailer her doing the Indiana Jones thing, swinging around in temples on vines and stuff, and be like, okay, we haven't had that in an episode. It was in the season 3 trailer, hasn't been in an episode, so it's got to be in this last episode, right? And I like seeing her, kind of being good at what she was doing, and then that conversation with Petra about how like, yeah, like we don't have all the strict rules. I'm not going to throw you in the brig. But Mariner not quite fitting in and then deciding, she was happier being a part of Starfleet. I like, where we end up with Mariner at the end of this episode of she's kind of a born again Starfleet officer. She's like figured out like, oh, I actually, even though I've complained a lot over the years, like I actually, do prefer to be serving on a Starfleet ship. And, I find a lot of meaning in that.
She also seemed to have that revelation at the end of Crisis Point, the original one too. So she sort of had this revelation a couple times in different levels.
Yeah, and I think she was like clearly like already getting there. Ransom had been talking about how like, oh, you're such an impressive officer these days. You've turned over a new leaf. It was really only when she felt like betrayed by her mom.
Yeah. And to be fair, it's not like she made. I mean, I guess she made the choice to leave Starbase 80, but Starbase 80 is.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to serve there either. Here's your uniform. It has my sandwich in it. Let me get that back.
Exactly. I did like that this storyline did not go into the obvious thing of Petra actually being like shady.
Yeah, there was that Lower Decks misdirect that I've complained about it before when it's like, yeah, sometimes like I see these misdirections coming and it kind of annoys me when I see it coming, but they pull it off brilliantly a couple times this season.
I think it worked because they didn't do the misdirect with Widow Vigo. So like if both of them had done that, like if they had like tried to be like, "What Amigo's evil?" Wait, actually, he's not. And then had done the same thing with her. I think I would have been like, "No, that's too much."
I thought it was interesting though that the funds for their archaeology comes from Admiral Picard for a couple of reasons. I see Star Trek prodigy writer producer Aaron Walke. Hi, Aaron. He's actually in our live audience at the moment. So Aaron, hope you stick around when we talk about Prodigy in a moment. But he's saying it is wild that Picard gives a speech about how money is no longer the driving force in the 24th century, but his family is also apparently loaded. I don't know if he's like getting money from like selling the wine off of his vineyard, or I think there's. I think there might be like other ways he's directing funds toward the Independent Archaeologist Guild. But what stood out most to me was like, I was like Khan in the Wrath of Khan. I was like, Admiral. Like I was thinking, like, shouldn't he still be a captain at this point in 2381? Because in Star Trek Picard, and I think even like the tie-in novels say that he remained a captain on the Enterprise E until the Romulan crisis. And in order to head that up, he had to accept promotion to Admiral. But then Picard turned around and immediately contradicted that in that episode in Nepenthe, because they show a picture of Picard with baby Thad, and he's in an Admiral uniform then, which actually would have been around this time in 2381.
My headcanon is maybe they gave him a promotion and he was like, I still want to be on a ship. Just commanding it as an admiral. But then when they're like, if you want to head up this giant thing, you can't just be like chilling on this one ship.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna expect, because like the whole point of him, like why it's important for him to like stay a captain, is because Kirk told him in Generations, like, stay in that chair as long as you can, because that's where you make a difference. So I think as long as like he's still in command of a ship, he wouldn't mind being you know an admiral. So I agree with you, Rachel. That's gonna be my headcanon going forward.
I'm laughing at Joel's little joke.
Yeah.
Joel in our live audience is saying Picard traded Cisco's desk for sweet archaeological funds. So there you go.
Like the self-sealing stem line.
And then Aaron has some thoughts on that Romulan supernova, though. He's saying I think the Romulan supernova is discovered in 2381, and Picard begins negotiations on behalf of the Federation prior to 2385. So Aaron Walke, because you are a writer and producer on modern Star Trek, I'm going to assume that you're the inside source and probably know what you're talking about. So
I'm going to assume you're right.
Although if they had 4 years to evacuate, I think they probably should have done a better job.
Well, I think it was that the government was acting like nothing was wrong, right?
Yes, yeah, they didn't want to. At least in the books too, especially.
It was like a Chernobyl type thing. We have to keep this under wraps. Like we can't look weak. Not in front of the Klingons.
Like why is there fewer services every day, and why is the water drying up, and all this stuff that was happening? And
don't ask.
Never mind. Just
don't
keep working.
question the Romulan state.
Why did Texas randomly have a blizzard?
Oh yeah. But Mariner convinces Petra to go with her to help her mom in the Cerritos. And that was, I guess, like there's a lot of tension there when Petra actually pulls a phaser on Mariner. Mariner's like, come on, you got some Starfleet in you. You served on the Victory. Let's go help them. So we have the setup for our big climax. We get a Sovereign class with a interesting name shows up at the battle. And I liked the Texas class torpedoes. I think they actually call them photon torpedoes. Yeah, Boimler is like better than being shredded to death by photon torpedoes, but they're an interesting torpedo. They're like this like little purple torpedo that like breaks apart in like a bunch of little torpedoes. This is like a cool animation. They seem powerful.
They looked really cool. And it was also, I like that they look so different because it was easier to figure out which ship was which, like during like the battle part.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've often found in like some Star Trek, if they look too similar, I was like, I can't tell who's shooting right now.
Yeah, especially when you're doing like Starfleet on Starfleet, it'd be real easy to get confused. So, and I guess this also kind of reminds me of Star Trek Into Darkness, because we had like some Starfleet on Starfleet battles there with a Badmiral doing what Badmirals do and Breaking Bad. But I loved the maximum warp me line, because it's so like ridiculous for warp me to be her catchphrase, but it's like something like Lower Decks can do, being like the goofy comedic show, is that it can incorporate goofiness into like a serious moment without undercutting the stakes too much. Like I feel like no other show could have gotten away with maximum warp me, but Lower Decks did it, and it just felt like so seamlessly appropriate to the show. But
Still
yeah,
better than another catchphrase that's out there that's on another show. It's like,
I don't mind any of the catchphrases, but I think it's weird that we've entered this point in Star Trek where from now on anyone who's ever a captain has to have a catchphrase. It's like, okay, that was never a thing for 50 years, but I guess it is now.
I mean, I guess Picard did have one, but I thought everyone just said that.
Yeah, and we got engage.
Kirk says what? Let's get out of here or something like that.
Let's fly. Saru, I think, says execute.
I wonder if they're in the 2009 movie. Pike says hit is Pike. What is? Oh, no,
Pike says punch it.
Punch it.
In the Kelvin timeline, but Prime Pike says hit it.
Yeah, that was like, wait, they're similar, but they're not the same.
Yeah, that's probably how alternate timeline stuff would play out, right?
Yeah.
It'd be like the little difference.
I was curious, and once I found only like one clip of Jeffrey Hunter, and he just says engage.
Yes, yeah, he did say engage in the cage. That rhymes. Yeah, you also hear Kirk say execute a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Saru is going back and looking at
where they're in the transporter room, and Patrick Stewart says engage. Wait, no, what do we say in this room? Now I can't remember what you say in that room, which is fun.
In what room? What are you talking about?
In the transporter.
Oh, energize.
Energize. Yeah, he couldn't think of the word energize, and then I couldn't, so that was fun.
I did like the Cerritos, kind of hauling ass at maximum warp, and the the warp core going crazy, and the whole ship kind of like shaking apart, because like the Chris Westlake music kicked in there, and it felt
the maximum warp while they're still firing animation looked awesome.
Yeah, and they're doing something heroic. They're like, okay, there's civilians on the station, so if we show these California class ships that we have their other daddy, we have Rutherford, they're going to follow us. So we'll sacrifice ourselves to save everyone else. And that's when Shax gets his big moment, which I appreciate. The Boimler being bold to help save the day thing, but just that
picture of Brad was so funny. Like, I'm sure it was just a second in there, but his like face was so ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like that second you put something insane in animation for like a second, and that like makes it work. But when you take a screenshot of
it, when you're also look at it out of context.
Yeah.
They do a really good, speaking of that, they do a really great job when they do a freeze frame like on a video or in a holodeck. They manage to capture the way they draw it. It looks like somebody's been badly frozen. Like, oh, you picked that moment to freeze it. They do. I think that's amazing.
That would be really hard to do in live action if you're asking an actor to like stay like that, and you're like, you have to at least let them do like a stone cold face.
Yeah. And then just her, that expression, that was like, that again.
Or like all the ideas they suggest, I say we eject the warp core. We can drop out a warp and surprise them. Can't we like rendezvous with the Titan? Maybe we can do something with a deflector dish and turn it into a weapon. Or like maybe we can get them in a logical spiral. And then Rutherford's like, no, they have safeguards against paradoxes. It's just like, these are like just all of the Star Trek tropes that might be applicable. This is what I think both like writers, when they're trying to break a story, they'd be tossing around stuff like this. And also like us as like audience members, if we're trying to figure out, how are the characters going to get out of this? But Shax, I'm happy that Shax got like his big victory moment. He gets to, do the extreme thing and detonate the warp core. Asked to do it in the very first episode of the show. But the little like victory march down to engineering, I felt that was a bit over the top, but I know a lot of people laughed at that. So
I thought it was really funny, and I just loved the idea that the entire crew was like, he's finally gonna get to eject the warp core. Like, I imagine they've all
they're cheering him on in the hallway.
Every single person has had a shift in the bridge where he said eject the warp core. Like,
they know that this is his thing.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of an homage in some ways to like Worf, because Worf never gets
right. Yeah, it was like the idea of like Worf always had like the most extreme suggestion.
And which does make sense for the security, like the chief of security.
But the ejection, I think the way that they do it with like, you know, two senior officers, and then the way that we see the special effects of, you know, the warp core leaving the ship, it mirrored what we saw in Star Trek Voyager when Tom and B'Elanna ejected the warp core.
That's right. Yeah.
But of course, the Alito survived the battle, and in order to put a stop to the Texas class Mariner and all the fellow California class ships show up, and Rachel made the wonderful point at the top of the show that yes, season 3 of Lower Decks, they've tried to use its own history, use its own lore, as much as it pulls from other parts of the franchise. So it was cool to see all the familiar faces. You know, the Marced, the Carlsbad, the Inglewood, you know, ships that had been established before. Like we know those captains, you know, with Ramsey and Vindome and the Carlsbad guy from Mining the Mind's Mind, the youngster. And then the way that all these ships, you know, looked different, how they all had like a little bit of uniqueness to them.
I love the design of the graphic design on each one of them.
Yeah, so even like this, unlike the Picard season 1 finale, which I've made my peace with that. I was kind of disappointed with the copy paste fleet, but they gave us a big apology in the first episode of season 2 when they had that beautiful Starfleet ship there. So I've made my peace with that. I accepted
it in that my mind. I was like, I think it was because of like everything going on around the time they would have been.
People were starting to shut down for COVID. I think that might have been a factor, but yeah, here like it actually makes sense to have like a bunch of ships of the same class, and even then, like they're still not copy paste. Like they still have like some uniqueness to them. So it was just really cool. It's a really cool visual to see that.
It was so funny here. It's just having just list more and more like California names.
And the Bizarro ship where you have the man Freeman and the bug guy Boimler. Like I totally forgot about this ship being in service. I think that was Veritas season 1 episode 7. But yeah, I forgot that these weirdos were even out there.
In this Bizarro version, do you think the Bizarro version of Mariner and the Bizarro version of Captain Freeman are still related to each other?
Sure. Yeah, why not? Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe like this, like the Mariner doppelganger is like the mother of the Freeman one. I don't know. But yeah, they're too weird that I can't think about that for too long.
That's fair.
It freaks me out a little bit. But yeah, this is where I think like if they had like a big ship, you know, it would have looked cooler to see like a bunch of like little California class ships shooting like one big enemy. But it was, you know, always like we were talking, you know, the animation always looks good. We like seeing like the battles, the blow ups, the big explosions.
They did mention that they had a San Clemente, which is interesting because in Crisis Point, the first one, it's like we don't have a ship named San Clemente. So I'm wondering if like that was inside of the fiction of that holodeck program, and they really did, or if they just came up with one since that was like they've commissioned San Clemente in the last 2 years.
My favorite was like California. Like there was a couple I just recognized from like random stuff. Like it was like Anaheim. I think Anaheim was one of them, which is where Disneyland is.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, I wrote down all of them. There's actually, I found 2 ships that were previously mentioned in the show that when Boimler says it's everyone, like he must not have read every name of every California class ship, because there were 2 that he left out. I'll go over that in a moment.
It was sad that we didn't get the Mid-Wilshire.
That's a good question. Like what California towns or small cities should have been used that weren't?
The one I found funny was West Covina. Because that's where the show Crazy Ex-Girlfriend takes place, and they have a song about that. Just like the title is the name of that town, but it's a running theme throughout the show. So anytime I hear, and apparently now every time I hear the name West Covina, that song just pops in my head.
West Covina, California.
Yeah, exactly. Look, my name's Rachel Bloom. People bring that show up to me a lot. Like
that would be true. It was a fun show.
It was a fun show. I love that show. Thank God I do. Like,
It also really it was a great discussion about mental health as well, which is something that it destigmatized it.
Where was Forks of Salmon, California? Is that a name of a town in California?
Forks of Salmon.
Forks of Salmon. I've never heard of Forks of Salmon, so I don't know what Starfleet Boy is talking about in our live audience, but I assume it's not something he just made up.
It's a place in California. It's an unincorporated community in Northern California.
Well, good for them, I guess.
It would be hilarious
Forks
if
of
like
Salmon.
if like the Texans had like a Sunset Valley, like just really, really tiny.
Well, at the end of the episode, we get to see Mariner kind of make up with her friends. Yeah, I like that they had Boimler, apologize. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Like, I told you that you should have, apologized when you didn't do anything wrong." And Tindy's like, "I'm sorry, we didn't do more to stick up for you." And then I love Mariner being like, "It's partly my fault. Like, I didn't really like give y'all a chance. I was, ready to leave the ship." And we get a moment of her like connecting with her mom, but the moment that I wish that we could have gotten, that I teased earlier, was her and Jennifer. I kind of would like to know like what their status is going to be going into season 4. What do y'all think? Are we done with Jennifer? Are they broken up? Like, is that all that we're going to get with them?
Might be. I don't know that this is all we're going to get from them, but I think they might be currently not together.
I actually thought that this was better than having a conversation. Her looking at her, and then it was like, the people that matter to me are the people that I'm going to, and it's just sort of that, and Jennifer's friends should have been like a red flag to begin with.
Yeah, I can see them like reconnecting. Although I do now questioning if they don't have the Jennifer voice actor as much as they'd like, because they show her a lot without she doesn't talk at all in this episode, even though she's in the background a lot.
Well, it is interesting the way that Aaron was just describing the scene, but yeah, like Mariner does not acknowledge her at all, which I think that is kind of cool. She literally just like walks past her, and then we see like Jennifer's reaction, but like to Mariner, she's like, "Yeah, I've already written you off. Like, you no longer exist as an important person in my life." Which is kind of a mature way of
dealing with that.
Yeah. But the moment between her and her mom was cool. And
I thought it was sweet, but I kind of feel like she forgave her mom a little quickly.
Yeah.
It's not that if it was just the like, "I don't want you on my ship anymore," that'd be fine. The line that like, "I'm not even sure I can call you like my daughter anymore." I like that line. I was like, "Oh, Carol," like last episode, like that is too far.
Yeah, a lot of people were really mad about that last week. I just kind of, I don't know, accepted it as kind of dramatic dialogue. But yeah, I can definitely see how like, I mean, like, I don't know, I'm lucky enough, like I never had like a parent say something mean like that to me, so I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, that's certainly like an extreme.
Either, but
I did.
Generally, good parents don't say stuff like that to their children. That's like.
I showed my father a design that I had done once, and he said, "Don't you understand? I'm just not interested in the things you do." So I'm like, "Okay, then." And that was sort of like when I subconsciously was just like, "Okay, until I graduate, I'm just gonna not try to engage you in any kind of,
Well, that sucks. But Aaron, your designs are
sorry
awesome, and I'm glad you kept that up and made a career.
Maybe that's why I had to push through that. It's like, it made my designs better.
But the other thing I called last week, I said, okay, Mike promised us we were going to get T'Lyn from Wage Douge season 2. They said they're going to bring her on to the Cerritos in season 3. It ain't happened yet. It's got to happen next week in the finale, right? And then sure enough, here at the very end, well, not the very, very end, but damn near the end of the season.
It's like how the Prodigy, we're going to get it by the end of the year.
Yeah, we're gonna do these 10 more episodes of Prodigy by the end of 2022. It's like, okay, like any day now. And it's like, okay, like the last 10 weeks of the year, that's when you get your Prodigy. It's like, well, you didn't lie. Mike McMahan didn't lie about T'Lyn. Like, we got her in season 3, just barely. But
I did not expect the pairing of her and Tendi, and that is just perfect.
That is great.
Yeah.
I kind of like that the pairing is neither of them are human.
Mm.
Oh yeah, they're both aliens. They're both
Yeah.
like old school TOS aliens. They're both like
Mhm.
they're two of the first alien. You know, the Cage had Spock and Ryan Slave Girl. So
That's true.
Yeah.
but I think that they'll be good foils for each other. You know, Tindy's
Mhm.
like the most emotional, most like expressive, charismatic, warm, smiley, giddy person on the show, and then T'Lyn, even though she's not a typical Vulcan, she's like mostly Vulcanish, just
Yeah.
like by Vulcan standards. I guess she's like a Tindy of like a Vulcan culture.
Mhm.
Like she might be like high level emotions for Vulcan society, but on the Cerritos, she's probably going to come off as more of your average Vulcan. So yeah, they'll be interesting to see the chemistry they have between the two of them doing science officer
Definitely.
stuff. I'm glad we're doing more science officer stuff because they had Tindy say like she wants to be a captain. So I'm glad they didn't just like push her off and like
Yeah.
the captain track. We're gonna get more sciencey stuff with her.
I'm just glad she's just not bouncing around, because I think sometimes they did that like in season 1. It felt like anybody could have jumped into almost any track. I'm kind of glad that they have a groove now.
Yeah, and we have the setup of Shax forgives Boimler, by the way. So he finally got his bridge buddy that he'd been looking for since season 2. But
Yay.
Shax forgives Boimler. But Mariner is gonna be shadowing Ransom, not so much in like he's like her probation officer like he was like in season 3, but I guess like in season 4 she's gonna be like doing command training with him, and maybe even like
I love how horrified Ransom looks about this.
yeah, it's kind of like the tables turning. It's it's the opposite of like, as far as you're concerned, Mariner, I'm your mama now. It's like the opposite of that. But I think they might be setting Mariner up to be like a future first officer. If Boimler makes it to captain someday, I can see like Mariner being like his number 1.
I can see Mariner enjoying being number 1 more, specifically because I feel like she would be so annoyed by not being able to go on away missions.
Yeah, I think that might be the trajectory for like some of these characters. In Crisis Point 2, we saw Boimler was the captain, Mariner was first officer, Tindy was science officer, and Rutherford was engineer. And I think that might actually be like where they end up, even though Tindy says she wants to be captain someday. She's like, well, I'll be science officer first and then captain. Do the Janeway or Spock route. But yeah, we end with everyone instead of doing the lower decks chant, lower decks, they're doing Cali class, and it's like,
and anyone from California is like saying, please don't say Cali.
I know.
No one here says that.
Aaron taught me that because I say Cali all the time, and he was like, yeah, no one in California says that. I was like, oh,
we try not to, at least.
Yeah, it's it was a cool moment for I think also just like if you're like a fan of like that ship, I love like the goofy California class design. It's designed to be kind of a derpy ship, like it,
but it's not bad. I mean, it's just like
no, but it's like it just always felt like, oh yeah, it makes me think of like what would be a random kit bash in the background at Wolf 359 in Next Generation.
Oh yeah,
totally. Not like a big like hero ship. Which is perfect. That's like it's just, and that whole concept, like this unimportant ship that does like second contact missions. I don't know, just I kind of love the idea of like all of them like uniting together like that. Even if they made like the Texas class ships look like a bunch of assholes, which is fair and understandable. I guess there's a.
I remember when this first came out, they're like, they said the most unimportant ship in Starfleet, and it was like, there's the Star Trek fan of me who's just like very pissed off because I'm like, there's no unimportant ship in Starfleet. What are you talking about? Like, I was very concerned about like what Lower Decks was going to be like. I'm like, it's just going to be like, I don't know, Rick and Morty in space.
What it actually is other ships think they're unimportant, even if they aren't.
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, just the way they handled it is fine. I just think it was funny. Like before, when you just hear that with no context, never having seen the show, don't know the characters, it's just like, wait, that's not very Starfleet.
Yeah. Who would have thought that we would enjoy this show so much? And it's about like, it's about like a bunch of ensigns on what's like basically a background ship that only does second contact missions.
The main reason I thought would probably really like it is that I love the Lower Decks episode of TNG.
Yeah.
And I remember reading the description the first time I watched it, or like hearing about it and being like, oh, that sounds sad. And then like watching it and being like, I would die for all of these characters and I've only known them for an hour. Well, besides like one or two.
Well, let's talk about the post-credit scene. We see
Oh.
the Kala system from way back season 1, the season 1 finale. No small parts, right? That's where Shax was sacrificed before he mysteriously returned from the dead, but he was sacrificed to stop the pack-led clump ship, and that's where we last saw the Badgie AI on Rutherford's implant. I was wondering a few episodes ago when we had the peanut hamper episode, a mathematically perfect redemption, right? When they showed this
It's here,
implant
right?
floating around, so I was wondering
Yeah.
like, is that gonna be Badgie? And sure enough, Badgie is returned and he's being beamed up by a green tractor beam. The color green normally indicates one of two Star Trek enemy alien races. It's typically either Romulans or Borg, but it could be neither. So I don't know. I don't know what's in store
Given
for Badgie.
Lower Decks, yeah, I imagine it could be something else.
It could be either. And then I was, even the green doesn't necessarily imply this. I was wondering if it was Section 31. Just because we like had it come back in.
I mean, those are the loose plot strings that are still dangling after this finale, I guess, are Section 31 and Badgie, and then the evil AIs.
I was gonna say, do we know
Earth.
what color the beam? Didn't they? Wasn't there? Shoot, was there green in the Jeffrey Combs AI?
Ooh.
For like when he was doing weapons or something like that. I'm trying to remember.
I just see them working with Badgie, like them and Peanut Hamper.
Yeah. I'm curious. Yeah, I don't know why Peanut Hamper ended up there though, because weren't the exocomps supposed to be like sentient beings? They're not AIs. They weren't programmed.
Well, I think everyone there is sentient. It's prison.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It seemed. I don't know.
I think the Jeffrey Combs computer was also sentient. It was just also evil and can't be
right.
left
Well, yeah,
in society. I don't know why they thought putting them next to each other was a good idea.
Yeah, no, that's like,
yeah.
They know, like, even 1960s computers that could, talk with tones or whatever. It's like they can still communicate. It's like,
yeah.
With all the stuff they're doing with the naughty AIs in Lower Decks, I can certainly see how the Tal Shiar infiltrated Starfleet, Zot Vush, all that Picard season 1 stuff. I could see how it'd be pretty easy to push for the synth ban. It'd be like, yeah, like these things. Have you not heard of Peanut Hamper or Agamas or Badgie? Like these things cause problems, yo.
I just want to hear an actual Romulan Tal Shiar agent in a live action show talk about Peanut Hamper.
Or Badgie, honestly.
So weird. Or Badgie, either one of them.
When they had the serious moment in this episode when Rutherford tells Captain Freeman about the AI and the Texas class ships, he doesn't say, oh, it's Badgie. He says it's the same software that killed Shax. Because if he would have said like this is Badgie, it would have like I think kind of undercut the.
I also don't know that the captain might not know Badgie's name.
Yeah, she's got more important stuff to worry about than because like other than like him being used in that episode to blow up the Packlids, I guess he never really would have been on her radar, right? He was just like a bad holodeck program prior to that.
Rutherford lost his memories of season 1, right? Did he get some of them back?
Yeah, I'm sure he. Like people told him about Badgie and what happened and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But he might not have the connection with Badgie he once had.
Well, I'm sure it will come to a head at some point in season 4, and hopefully, we get season 5 and more Lower Decks. But yeah, I'm looking forward to what they do next. I just my concern with the show, I guess, is that it does feel like they do grow the characters, but they have a very comfortable status quo of basically like having everyone on the ship as ensigns, and like it's always going to default back to that. So I would really like in season 4, I think, if they could kind of push outside of that status quo. Maybe
because I think they were like worried, like, oh, we don't want people to leave the ship, but I was like, they could all get a promotion to lieutenant,
right?
Or like one of them and then the other, like, and that could be a whole thing if like one person gets promoted before the others.
Yeah, or like, and then you have like a competition, like, oh, between the 4 of them, one of them will get promoted. Who's it going to be?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
In
I
the
mean,
Lower Decks TNG episode, wasn't one of them a lieutenant or something like that? Or
but
am
at the
I
end of the
imagining
episode,
that? Oh, okay.
there is actually like some competition between Sito and the guy from Canada.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, he got it because she died. Spoilers.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of it was a bittersweet victory because
Or
he's like,
did
cool, like,
she?
I got
Yeah.
promoted, but my friend is dead. Or, yeah, or did
Mhm.
she? I don't know. If any show is gonna bring her back, I mean, I think
Ooh, that
Lower
would be
Decks-
interesting if Cito Jackson or Cito was actually the Section 31 person.
oh,
who
she
was
could have been the
talking to-
lady. She could have,
Yeah.
she could have been the one who revived Boimler and was like, yeah, Jesus Christ, Aaron, that's perfect because it's like the same thing would happen with her. Like Starfleet
Yeah.
thinks that she's dead.
Yep.
If
Yeah.
she actually just joined Section 31. Oh my God, did
could
we
still be
figure
dead.
out?
That would be
Did we
okay.
figure out
I would
season
honestly love
4?
that because I genuinely love that character, even though she's only in
Yeah.
2 episodes, and I cry every time I watch
Yeah.
the TNG episode Lower Decks. I remember going, I was like, I'm gonna watch it. I was like, why do I always do this? I always
Hey,
cry.
DS9 wanted to bring her back. They
Yeah.
talked about it. They considered doing it. I can't remember. I don't know if it was like Berman pulled the plug on that or some other reason why they never did it.
I think
But-
I read somewhere they thought it would like undercut the moment in that
Mm.
episode.
Yeah.
I think we have
I-
enough
I
time
say bring
now
her
has
back.
passed. Yeah, exactly. It's like,
It's been years. Like we
Yeah,
do it.
we've
I
had
have
30
no
years
idea-
to enjoy
I have
that
no idea if
episode.
that actress is still like active in the industry or what, but
yeah, I don't know.
Well, I have
it doesn't seem great when I Google her. It comes up former TV actress.
Yeah, I just saw that. So I'm a former
Ooh.
actress. Oh well. Well, wasn't somebody they brought somebody back with a voice who wasn't acting full time, right? I thought.
Sonia Gomez, right?
Yeah, wasn't she not doing acting?
The
full
only
time
year
now?
she was only active from 92 to 95.
Oh,
Wow,
Oh,
she
she's
was
just
good.
a
I'm
year younger than I
surprised that
am.
she didn't stick with it.
Well, I think they could probably recast. I think
She's
it'd
from
be easy to-
Texas.
Oh, there you go. So she can join me and
All the
Rachel.
stars are aligning.
Yeah. But unless y'all have any other final thoughts on this episode, we still gotta move on to Prodigy. But I have like
We doing Gorn eggs?
I do have Gorn eggs. That's our
Yeah.
Easter eggs and jokes and continuity connections. So I'm just gonna run through them really fast. But the Starfleet Command building, it's like almost the exact same shot as what we saw in the Deep Space Nine episode Homefront. We get like the conference table from Star Trek 6. It has like those same lamps that were very popular on Earth. We see them in the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th centuries. So they were in style for a while. There is mention of a Thelosian. They're the plant people from the Infinite Vulcan, which Starfleet Boy and I will be talking about this weekend, I believe, on the Starfleet Boy YouTube
That
channel.
one I can actually probably join you on.
Oh, cool. Yeah, tomorrow.
Assuming my voice is still here. I've literally been on calls since 9 a.m. So the fact that I can still speak, I'm surprised.
It's a marathon today.
Yeah.
The idol that they retrieve from the temple and secure from the Ferengi grave robbers is clearly inspired by the idol in the opening of Raiders of the Lost Ark, which appeared in Jadzia Dax's quarters on Deep Space Nine, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
Mariner also, Petra Aberdeen mentions that they're traveling through the Beatrice Expanse. The Beatrice Expanse was previously mentioned in the season 2 episode Strange Energies. So I'm wondering if they're building up to something. It might be like a Starbase 80 thing where they kind of casually mention it a couple times before we ever see what it is. So just throw that out there. Beatrice Expanse might be something in the future, Lower Decks.
Maybe that's how they get to Strange New Worlds or something like that. Maybe
That's how they're going to time travel for the crossover.
Yeah.
Admiral Buenamigo offers to make Carol Freeman a fleet captain. This is the only time we've ever heard of a fleet captain, I believe, other than in the Menagerie, where we see Captain Pike as a fleet captain. That's always confused the hell out of me because it's not a real rank in the real Navy. I have no idea what the hell a fleet captain is. So if it's someone in charge of like an entire class of ships, that kind of makes sense. So I'm assuming that's what it is from now on. Even though Buenamigo wanted to have a ridiculous uniform. Billups in engineering says he wants some Galaxy class work. He wants commander data speeds and those blurry isolinear chips. So I think that's a comment on data shuffling those chips at warp speed, like we saw in the Next Generation a few times. Dr. Tiana says she spent 7 years on an Oberth class starship. If you don't know the Oberth, it's the like USS Grissom from Star Trek 3 that the Klingons blow up. It's the kind of like the red shirt of ships, so no one wants to spend 7 years there. Ransom is giving people lessons on the Riker maneuver, how to sit in the chair commander style. The computer graphics for the Texas class ship AI looked like the M5 computer display from the Ultimate Computer. Those dirt scanning orbs that Tiana is using to check for life forms on LT-358, that was a prop from the Next Generation. The first time it ever showed up was in the episode Clues. Dr. Crusher was using it.
It's growing moss or something.
Right. The Augmenic 9 planet, that's a Brigadoon type planet that phases in and out. That's a reference to the Deep Space Nine episode Meridian, which I didn't realize what Brigadoon was, but when we talked about DS9 season 3, my co-host on that show, Dave, pointed out that it's like the Scottish play about like the village that appears from the mist, Brigadoon. So
also
that's
the Scottish play is based off a German myth, but when that musical came out, it was around World War II, and sentiments about Germany weren't great.
Right. So they made it Scottish, not the actual Scottish play, but like it was a play about like a village in Scotland.
Yeah, there's a movie version of it, and it has Gene Kelly.
From like the 1950s, right?
Yeah. Actually, what I was at the interview, the writer of this episode. I asked, I was like, "Is this like especially Brigadoon?" I was like, "I was told to write Brigadoon in space," and I was like, "Okay,
nice."
I knew what was happening.
The red lighting in Admiral Buenamigo's office before he's blown up by the Alita, I think that was meant to homage Star Trek Into Darkness, where a similar attack is carried out on a Badmiral.
Mm-hmm.
Mariner tells Petra, I was hoping for a Romulan or at least Xindi cabal when she was investigating the funding of their archaeological endeavors. So that was a mention of the Xindi. Or now I'm questioning myself. Did she say Xindi or Suliban? I can't remember if I wrote down the right. I knew it was like an Enterprise reference, but I forgot which evil alien. I think it was Xindi.
I thought it was Xindi.
Okay. But in Enterprise, they always talk about like the Suliban were the ones with cabals. So I think that's where I'm getting confused. But the Sovereign class starship that shows up, the USS Van Sitters, was named after John Van Sitters, who's been involved with Star Trek for many, many years. I guess his Aaron, you could probably describe his role now that he's vice president.
He's the VP of Star Trek, basically.
Yeah, he's
like the marketing and kind of the managing of that aspect of it. But
all
kind of
the merchandise and a lot of like your tie-in material, things other than the shows that you can buy of Star Trek. That's he has.
I feel like he's like the connective tissue, the glue that sort of sticks all the different series and stuff together, because he has his fingers in all of that.
And we get a Kayshawn-ism in this episode when Shax is making his victory run to eject the warp core. Kayshawn can be heard saying Arnak on the night of his joining when he sees the enthusiastic Shax making his way to the warp core. And then these California-class ships that we get in this episode, we get the Oakland, Alhambra, San Diego, San Clemente, Sherman Oaks, Vacaville, Burbank, Fresno, Santa Monica, San Jose, I think, Sacramento, Culver City, Anaheim, Riverside, Vallejo, West Covina, Pacific Palisades. How do you say that?
Pacific Palisades?
Yeah. Reading, Eureka, Mount Shasta, Merced, Carlsbad, Inglewood, and the two that we've had mentioned on the show before that didn't show up were the Bakersfield and the Ventura. So they might have showed up and like Boimler didn't read the names off, but they didn't get their shout out. But all the other ones were either new or ones that we we'd heard before. So
Mhm.
that was a impressive collection of California small
I'm
cities and
just
towns.
now imagining the writer's room just sitting there. Okay, California town names. Let's go.
Yeah, I think probably like everyone got to like add in one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Then the last thing I got is Talen's rank insignia. It is the provisional style that we saw in Star Trek Voyager. I assume because she had the equivalent rank of an ensign on that Vulcan ship that she was serving on. So they just kind of give her the equivalent rank in Starfleet, even though she's not like an official Starfleet ensign. She's just serving as one. And kind of how they treated the Maquis in Voyager, which is interesting. That insignia also shows up in this Prodigy episode we're about to talk about.
I was gonna say that's like okay. It is Zindi Cabal, by the way.
Zindi Cabal. Okay, cool.
Yep.
So I don't know why it was
correct.
Zindi Cabal, not a Suliban Cabal, but that's what Mariner said. So very good. But yeah, with all of the lower decks out of the way, I'm ready to talk about some Star Trek Prodigy. But yeah, just to recap this episode, I'm just going to read the official synopsis again. But for this episode, Asylum, I got at the edge of Federation space, the crew applies for asylum at a comm relay outpost, only for their starship to reveal its shocking true purpose. And yeah, as you might recall from the last episode of Prodigy that we saw a long ass time ago, but they established that the diviner has hidden a secret weapon on board the protostar, and if they contact any Federation ship or apparently outpost or anything, it will, I guess, kind of Trojan horse virus attack, hack into those systems and make the whole thing go haywire and self-destruct. So yeah, they learn that the hard way, that oh yeah, we even though we really want to go join up with Starfleet, we cannot talk to them until we figure out what's causing this.
Keep trying to download Windows into the system. Destroying
Doesn't
everything.
want to. It destroys everything.
Well, Rachel, we'll let you go first this time. But what was your broad impressions of this episode of Asylum, and how did it feel to get back to watching Prodigy after so long?
I really enjoyed this episode. It's like kind of I remembered enjoying the characters, but it's been a long time. And I was like, "Oh, right. All these characters are really fun and they all like have very unique personalities for Star Trek, I feel like." And it just felt nice to be back to it, and I was like, "Right." And I just had this overwhelming sense of I'm so glad like this show exists for kids. And also I still want a Murph plush. Can you sell one and not just give it away at a convention that not that many people are at?
Yeah, I'm sure scalpers have them on the New York Comic Con ones are on eBay now. But
if they're smart, they were just holding them till like Christmas time or right before that, and then they'll let everybody buy one, and the demand will be so high because you couldn't get one before.
I know a friend of mine, like today, literally, she's like, "Oh, I made a Murph sticker," and I was like, "Add to cart." What?
Nice. Aaron, how do you feel about Asylum?
I was really happy that they worked in like all the past information that you needed without feeling like here's what happened previously on Prodigy, and like each character recapping everything. It was super super smooth, and this felt like a romp at the same time while being like important. So I think it was great for them to finally see Starfleet, basically, the furthest out part of Starfleet that you can get. But no, I really enjoyed the characterizations. I just felt like it had a comfortable feel. I know that sounds weird, but it's just sort of like, okay, you just slide back. It's like a comfortable blanket, basically.
Yeah,
and I love the opening too. It just has little echoes of Star Trek the Animated Series / Star Trek 4.
Yeah, because we basically have an Aqua shuttle. They did. I was really hoping
Yeah.
as soon as I saw this machine, I was hoping that they would call this vehicle an Aqua shuttle, and they
Yeah.
didn't call it that. But I'm going to call it that until I'm corrected. But
That's fair.
I don't know. Aaron Walke is in our live audience. Maybe he can tell us if this thing has a name or not.
Ah.
But it felt appropriate that there had been like a bit of a time gap for the characters. You know, they said it's been a few weeks since Tars Lamora. I was like, okay, yeah, it's been a few months for me, but
Yeah.
I was very eager to get back to Prodigy. It was a show I was really enjoying, and I always was kind of bummed that we just got like these 2 little 5-episode batches. So I'm happy now that we're gonna get like a 10-episode streak of Prodigy. I feel like it was like a little kind of denied its time, you know, in the spotlight. Unlike, you know, the other Trek shows, I feel like they all get kind of trusted. Okay, like you can have the spotlight all to yourself for a couple of months, and you know, Prodigy's never really had that. It deserves that, so I'm glad it's getting it now.
Yeah.
And I was surprised that they're already, you know, making contact with Starfleet. So it's like, oh, they're not going to draw that out too long. They're kind of moving along at an appropriate pace. Some other Star Trek shows, there's been complaints that, you know, with Picard season 2 or Discovery season 4, that maybe like things take a little too long to resolve and the season feels
I am
stretched.
glad they're already making like contact with Starfleet more, because I was like, I like don't like I love Voyager, but I have Voyager. Like we don't need it to be like a trek back through the Delta Quadrant.
Yeah, and I'm pretty confident that the show's, you know, it will change its status quo pretty drastically. They're not going to be like, just kids on the protostar stuck in the Delta Quadrant forever. I think it will, just based on things that Aaron Walke and others have said, you know, on the show. I think that we're going to see these people grow, and I think their status quo
Aaron
will
says,
change.
I like Aqua Shuttle.
Well,
Nice.
that's awesome, and it has a canonical precedent within Star Trek. So, very good. But I gotta ask, you know, like they're doing the Star Trek 4 thing with the Aquathon, you know, relocating this pregnant animal that's vital to the ecosystem, and you know, for the kids that have never seen Star Trek 4, they're kind of getting, you know, the fun of that just packed into this short little opening.
However, Star Trek 4, but it also reminded me of like how we're introduced to Book in moving. I forgot what he's moving.
Oh yeah, the glow worm or whatever. The mind worm, like the psychic worm.
We know what we're talking about.
The Denevian slime devil. No, just kidding.
No, there's another slime creature in this episode. I gotta question Janeway here, where she says, you know, they almost violated the Prime Directive. I guess because they didn't allow the aliens to see the ship. They just kind of beamed this creature up and then vanished swiftly.
It's kind of also now reminds me of the beginning of Into Darkness.
Yeah, it definitely made me think Into Darkness, but I would say like these kids did a little bit better job, because you know no one saw the ship at the end.
No one saw the ship.
Maybe you know, questionable. They kind of skirted the lines of the Prime Directive, but you know, better job than what the
similar mission happened with the TOS crew in this timeline, and they studied it, and they're like, "Here's how to avoid this."
But the water people looked cool. You know, I was talking about like the gorgeous animation, and it was cool to see like an ocean world. These things that are very hard to do in live action. I think it's great when the animated shows, a tradition that goes all the way back to the 70s to the animated series. But yeah, things that would be difficult to do in live action, like a giant Spock walking around. It's like, oh yeah, we can just draw it. It's easy now.
They remind me of what you were supposed to think that sea monkeys looked like.
Oh
like
yeah,
like the old comic book,
comic book ads.
Yeah,
it didn't look anything like the actual creatures.
Of that. Yeah.
But I guess the drama from this scene comes from Gwen starting to have these visions, these flashes of her father, the diviner, talking about a weapon. She's not really sure what it means, and Zero and her talk a little bit about like, we're still trying to get your memories back. We're working on that. And yeah, just very quickly, like almost immediately, it's like, oh, we're going to the Starfleet communication relay, and we're going to introduce ourselves to Starfleet, and hopefully they're not too mad at us. So,
it's that scene I had to remind myself that they are children, because I was like, of course they wouldn't be. Like, you were like, you didn't steal the ship. Like you used it to escape. You being held hostage somewhere. But then I was like, oh right, but kids like are always worried they're gonna get in trouble.
Yeah.
That is true, yeah. Especially, these kids kind of came from a pretty rough existence under the the.
I mean, they basically like we liberated,
and it hasn't been that long.
Yeah,
we
they were
liberated
just
a
slaves
terrible.
a few
Yeah,
months
we liberated
earlier.
this basically the slave situation going on.
Yeah.
Here we use this. Here it is back. Like,
but they kind of like wouldn't be open to trusting authority. Like that wouldn't be like their instinct. They would be a little bit more fearful and would probably worry. And
yeah, that's true. None of them have had good experiences with authority.
Janeway telling Dal that sometimes the hardest thing is to take a leap of faith, which I kind of wish they wouldn't word that like that, but I think it's a callback to a Voyager episode, but it's also just, the larger ideas like, sometimes, you just kind of have to, trust in others.
And maybe because I recently read a philosophy book that's like based on the good, but like leap of faith is like a very common like thing in philosophy.
Mm.
So I'm like, yeah, that's a very common saying. Like, so it made sense that she would word it like that.
I mean, we see them, make like a literal leap of faith later in the episode. But yes, like sometimes, you just got to do stuff even when it's scary. I guess basically like the lesson of this episode for the children in the audience.
Also, hug.
Yeah, it was
so
cool
cute.
to see. People like like each other and hug each other and be happy after all like the chaos and stuff that has taken place in this show previously. And it's good to
like
see.
hologram Janeway is like, oh, this is new.
Yeah.
Yeah, like no one on my show ever hugged me. Does Janeway ever get hugged in Voyager? I can't.
B'Elanna hugs her.
Okay. Yeah.
And she also is like surprised by it.
Is to say, oh well, that's good then. If they mirrored the reaction, that's cool.
I think it's probably the thing is like she was the captain. Like there was no one like equal rank to her. That's why she needs a hologram boyfriend.
Delete the wife.
Exactly.
But on this relay station, we meet Lieutenant Junior Grade Barnes Frex, who's got to be like the world's shortest Denobulan, right? Jenkum Pog is like 3 feet tall, and this guy's just barely taller than that. But I don't
also
know
for
why.
Denobulan, he'd be like super like being there on the station by himself. He's got to be like kind of freaking out a little bit. They used to being like completely surrounded by a ton of people.
Oh yeah. He's like, I miss like my wife and my husband and my wife's husband and. I don't know why he has the provisional rank insignia as well as like the normal pips. I assume like he just got bored and sticking stuff on. I haven't heard
that's not street corn.
That would explain him looking
corn.
like a little like how frazzled he was. Maybe because he's like, I'm so lonely.
But if Aaron Walke is still in the audience, I've heard that he has an explanation on Twitter, but I haven't gone and dug around and found it. So if he or anyone else wants to let us know, that would be very cool. I like the relay station, but I was a little weirded out by how all the L-cars and everything, it's like so identical to the Protostar, but yet we never see that anywhere else in Star Trek. So I do wonder, would it have been better if they added like a little bit more like variety? Like maybe like he has like a different looking phaser than the Protostar phasers. Like maybe he has like the phasers, or maybe like the environmental suits here look like, I don't know, like the ones in Lower Decks or something else, instead of like everyone just having like the same like Prodigy style L-cars, Prodigy style phasers. I'm still trying to figure out like my opinion on the Starfleet uniforms that we get in Prodigy. I think I really like them though. I like that all good things style comm badge. I like colorful uniforms. So I like when it's like it's not just mostly black. I love the black and gray uniforms from DS9 and First Contact. Like that, for many years, I thought that was my favorite uniform. But I want Starfleet to kind of be bright and colorful.
I do love those uniforms. Actually, my favorite thing about this uniform is that it has the TNG thing where it's not just like a full collar turtleneck, but it has the little like division thing. And that's mostly because I don't actually like wearing turtlenecks.
Yeah, same. I want to cosplay this uniform. I like the wraparound style uniforms. I like the color.
I need anyone when they start making these uniforms, someone let me know.
Yeah.
I
Definitely.
at a convention
I
or
want
something.
to buy one. We need Murph plushies and we need Prodigy style Starfleet uniforms.
Oh,
Aaron
I
responded
love
to
Aaron's
your
explanation.
Yeah, that is great.
Okay, so in our live audience, Prodigy writer producer Aaron Walke, who we got to get on the show, we got to get you in Tex-Trek at some point. But he says he is the provisional chief of operations and also Denobulan, who don't do well in isolation. Okay, so it's because of his mental health. Denobulans also prefer to go without clothes when alone, so maybe he had to dress in a rush when he had unexpected visitors. Yeah, Aaron, that would be fantastic because as we saw in Star Trek Enterprise, when everyone had to go to sleep and just leave Phlox alone on the ship, he was just like, running around nude.
That's right.
So interesting choice there. But I guess we get the explanation of Murph. So we finally learned that he is a melanoid slime worm, which there was a subject of so much speculation over the last year. I kind of like that people had like all these like extreme theories, and it just turned out to be like this, like the most like obscure, unimportant thing that like we know absolutely nothing about.
And apparently are the most adorable things in the universe. Like,
yeah, so it's like it's weird that
why
people,
is that?
It's an insult. Like that's a cute, cuddly thing. Like why would you insult Wesley Crusher by calling him a melanoid slime worm? If you're mad,
like,
maybe that dude thought Wesley was cute. Yeah, maybe he's like, you're a cute little kid. But yeah, Jankum learns that he's he's a founding member race of the Federation, so he thinks he's royalty.
Yeah.
The thing that like really intrigued me here, one of my favorite things about Prodigy is I think they do a good job of like these long form mysteries that they draw out for a while, but they give us enough. They like resolve things, they answer questions, but then like they bring up new questions. So we get a new question here with why does Starfleet want Dal so bad? They scan him and it's like, oh, it says contact Starfleet command immediately. So what's going on there? I've heard some interesting theories on that, but yeah, I'm unsure. But yeah, I'm very curious about his origin, his species now.
I'm wondering, it's either I like wonder maybe he's related to someone, like maybe he's like a child who's been missing.
Well, here's a crazy theory that I heard from someone a couple days ago, right? Yesterday, I guess. We know time travel is involved. We know at some point, I guess in the future, Chakotay will come back in time to the past, and that's why the protostar had been trapped on Tars Lamora for years. So what if Chakotay fell in love with like some purple alien woman and they had this child, and he's actually the son of Chakotay? I have no idea if that's anywhere close to being true, but I thought, oh, that is an interesting theory.
That is an interesting theory.
But
I also like the theory that someone has in the comments that he is the Tom Paris Janeway lizard baby grown up.
Yeah, so they would be I guess they wouldn't be like blood relatives, but I would want to see him encounter the lizard babies. Although I think Lower Decks is the claim to the lizard babies. I think they're going to show up in Lower Decks. Mike McMahon's teased that they will.
They've already had Tom. Maybe Tom feels bad and wants to go back and find his children.
Yeah, they should have sent Tom on the protostar. Like, I'm gonna go find our kids, catfish, because that's what he calls Janeway in the meme. Aaron Welke is saying the uniforms and comm badge are slowly being rolled out across the fleet and will be a Type B standard uniform alongside the Picard 2385 flashback uniforms and the predecessor to what we see in the 25th century. So that's really cool, Aaron Welke. But I would like to ask you, will we ever see those Picard flashback uniforms on lower decks, like in addition to these the style uniform? Like, will we see both being used on your
Prodigy?
show? Yeah, on product. What did I say?
Lower Decks.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant there's too many damn shows right now, but I meant Prodigy. Yes.
Oh god, I was at a happy hour with coworkers yesterday, and I wore this because it's a Halloween thing. And someone asked me how many Star Trek shows there are, and I said, "Let me count real quick." And they said, "What?" I was like, "There's like 4 or 5 on right now." Like,
Yeah.
I really wish that they had given it at least a week between the end of Lower Decks and this, just so each show could have their breathing room and like okay, concentrate on the ending, and then now we can put all of our energy to the beginning of Prodigy.
I also felt that way about the Picard and Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, I think they're going to keep doing these overlapped premieres and
or at least
finales.
Not have them come out on the same day.
I think they're going to keep doing it though. Even it's hard on us that are trying to make content, but it's hard for just people in the audience trying to keep up with everything. But they seem to like doing that, and I did the math. The Picard finale is going to be April 20th. If they premiere Strange New Worlds on that same day, then if it ends in June, they could premiere Discovery the same day as the Strange New Worlds finale, and then Discovery season 5 would end just in time for Lower Decks season 4 in late August, like they always do. And the Lower Decks finale would be like this time of the year, late October, and that would be just in time to get 10 more episodes of Prodigy before the end of 2023. It's just like the fact that they're choosing February 16th to release Picard season 3. I was like, okay, that's like the exact date if you wanted to overlap those premieres and finales like that and have Star Trek for the rest of the year. So
if you add another one, everything will explode. The universe will collapse.
I didn't mind it as much when you had they overlapped a couple episodes so that the premieres and finales weren't on the same day, because both of those should have their time to shine.
That was rough when there was 3 episodes of Picard overlapped with Discovery.
I honestly kind of preferred that way,
because it's like DS9 and Voyager running.
Back in the day, man. I'm so glad that I was not doing this back then in the 90s, because that would have been impossible. I would have gone insane.
I also it would have been it would have been impossible to go live on YouTube.
You'd be using real audio and broadcasting on
a little radio.
I would be on terrestrial radio. But
perfect.
The scene, that's the first time they ever mentioned the word Brakar on screen, right? We knew before the show premiered. I think that people were telling us that oh yeah, it's like the rock people from the Peter David novels. But yeah, Rock Talk learns that she is a Brakar, and also learns that there's multiple branches of science, 196 apparently.
My friend Bonnie is the one who does the computer voice.
I love them making a giant uniform for her.
And she also has a suit somehow that she can get out.
They somehow are able to throw together an environmental suit instantaneously during a commercial break.
I think they're probably replicated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, or the suit could, I guess, possibly have I don't know, nanotech or something, or it could adjust to a larger size. But you would think, there are Brakar in Starfleet or in the Federation. I don't know if we don't know anything canonically about them because they've only appeared in the non-canonical stuff until now. But I think they're probably supposed to be a Federation member species. If not them, then there's other people that are probably massive, like Rock Talk, that you got to accommodate. I saw someone in the live audience earlier talk about when Gwen gets trapped in this bio bed thing that gets flooded when Zero's trying to repair her memory. Someone mentioned in the live audience that they liked that she escapes on her own. She doesn't need to be rescued by someone else. And they kind of look kind of incompetent when they're trying to rescue her. Yeah, I guess we should talk about what happens when the virus spreads to the relay station. Frex tries to scan the protostar's computer logs and then unleashes the diviner's weapon. So we get the replicator shooting hot dogs. We get the phasers targeting the station. Gwen almost drowns. So this was another thing I was not expecting. I knew that the audience was shown that the weapon was on the protostar, but the characters clearly didn't know, and so I was like, oh, are we just gonna have like this, what Alfred Hitchcock would talk about a lot, but like a ticking bomb under the table that the audience knows it's there, but the characters don't know.
I was genuinely surprised how fast this was dealt with, and I'm glad. I'm glad it is too, because I felt like that could get old pretty quickly. But they're like, nope, we figured it out. New problem now.
Let me ask y'all about Frex's reaction when he's kind of nice and friendly to these children, but then he's just immediately like, "Oh, you're saboteurs! Get away from me!" And he just abandons them and ejects himself on the escape pod.
Still children.
Yeah.
Like, there is room in that pod for the rest of them. Like, he's just gonna leave them to blow up.
I would be like, assume like an adult had put them up to it.
I would also think that there would still be more than one escape pod on that station.
I'm hoping that we see
they'll
more
have the triplicate, backups and everything else in Starfleet.
Yeah, that's like a point they bring up in DS9. Like O'Brien is arguing with Cardassian about how like
that was a great conversation.
Yeah, like like I don't want to be stuck without my primary and without my first backup. I need like a secondary backup. But
it was Tracy Scoggins.
Oh yeah, from Babylon 5, and I had a huge crush on her in the 90s, but even as a Cardassian.
Yeah, she's in Lois and Clark too, as Cat.
Yeah, she was Cat Grant. But I'm hoping that we see more of Frex. I'm hoping that he just doesn't, bounce out of the show in this escape pod, because where is he escaping to? So I'm wondering if Janeway and the Dauntless if Janeway and the Dauntless are in pursuit of the protostar, it would make sense that they're kind of like retracing those steps. They might come to this relay and they might find him, and he'll be like, yeah, like these crazy kids, they took over that Starfleet ship, they sabotaged my station, you got to stop them, Admiral Janeway. So this could be like fuel to the fire of scary Vice Admiral Janeway coming after you. But they suit up in the environmental suits, and then Dal reiterates the lesson he learned from Janeway about sometimes the hardest thing is take a leap of faith, and they have to encourage Rock Talk to trust in herself and the math and make the calculations needed. Which, so I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, this is like kind of cool. We're like. Science is cool, math is cool, all that stuff. Like, it's
I like the visualization.
I thought the visualization was really cool. And then this was another thing where I was like, right, like you want to teach that message to kids and to be like, this is math and science, and this is how this is how it's like a practical use to it.
I don't know what it's saying, but I'm guessing that Aaron McDonald actually made it. It's probably some real orbital calculation.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. I know
math is important. I can't do it.
I don't know what any of these formulas or anything mean, but I'm watching this and I'm thinking like, all this stuff is pretty cool, but like it's still like really ridiculous to be able to like time this out just right. Like, how are you gonna get everyone to like jump with like the right amount of force to
be fair, they
have,
don't.
Like, the
they
right
have
speed.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I loved about it though. Like, okay, they don't make it, but they made it. But they don't like rob
close
Rock
enough.
Talk of the victory. Yeah, like she made it close enough that Janeway was able to do it on the tractor beam.
And also,
a team
Rock
effort.
Talk again is a child. Like, of course,
yes,
like.
Which we don't know exactly how old. We know that she also spent a lot of time alone in that separate
time loop thing.
Time space where everything was slowed down from her perspective. But yeah, she was stuck there for too long.
All that much, like, because she was by herself. Although that episode, I love that episode, but it made me mad in that she actually made a Murph plush, and I was like, "Wait, there's a Murph plush on the show now?"
Yeah, I forgot about that. I rewatched some Prodigy episodes to catch myself back
Yeah.
up, and I was like, look at this. Like these people put the plush in the show that everyone's like demanding for in real life. Like perfect commercial for it right here, you know. So
I feel like there's I think the people making the show understand what the shows understand what people want, but I don't know where the communication is happening.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
And it's interesting. It feels like the people who are doing the advertising and the merchandising and stuff aren't the same people that they were before Viacom and CBS remerged, where they kind of knew what people wanted, and now they're like, we're being told that they want the Enterprise's landing. You're like, no, that doesn't make any sense.
No one wanted that.
the big
Nobody wants
like
that.
disconnect I see is like the people running like the Twitter understand.
Yeah.
Like they're making jokes that actually make sense. They're doing like the map of the theme park in the first season of the first episode of this season of Lower Decks.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no
Yeah.
like no merch of that. I would love to have like a t-shirt that's supposed to be from that theme park.
Well, there's a t-shirt. That's the t-shirt club or whatever. There was the.
Oh yeah,
But the Lower Decks t-shirt club, that's done by Titmouse.
Right.
And those shirts are cool. Like I don't do like the subscription for all of them, but I buy one or two every year. I got the Deep Space Nine one. It just came in the mail a couple days ago.
I should look to see if more of those are still available because I need more. Need is actually probably the wrong word, but I want them.
I still want the Murph slippers that I mocked up like early on. They were like, as you walk, they make noises.
That sounds cute.
It was the joke was because like we got a t-shirt club. I said you get a slipper club. And it was like that was everybody gets different slippers.
Especially because like Deep Space Nine in general lacks merch.
Oh yeah.
Oh, but I think the Playmates toys for Prodigy, I think they're out. The first wave is out, or it's about to be out.
I think because I have not seen them yet.
If whenever they do come out, if you want more Prodigy merch, you know the best way to let these corporations know is to buy what's out there. So I might have to pick up those figures.
Oh, I definitely am because as far as I know, there's just a little like I need something of Murph. I need it.
Well,
Okay, Aaron. Thank you for doing that.
What happened?
Aaron said Aaron's comment.
Aaron Walkie saying we definitely
me.
put the Murph plush in the show in hopes it would be real. Okay, so
thank you. I appreciate
the people
that
making the
so
shows
much.
know what's up. Yeah. That's okay. That's
see,
cool.
and that is my theory that you guys know what people want.
Was that the inception of that? Is that where the demand for the Murph plush began? Was with that episode?
Think so because I said it like when we first saw Murph, like before the show even started. I was like, make a toy of this, please.
Ooh, or those stress balls? You get the things like
could be like the stress ball would be great.
And then it's like back in the 80s, you know, like Transformers are like the big toy, but then like they put out Transformers the movie and killed all the toys, and it's like, look at all these new toys that you have to buy now.
Yeah.
No.
So they're kind of doing that with Murph, because we know he at some point in the season he's going to go through a metamorphosis and change form. So then you can have like a new plush for like the new design, you know.
Apparently it was hard to assemble. I feel like
that's what I heard. Because if you look at there's all these different stitching,
I could see
like how
that.
the pieces are put together.
But I also feel like if you could make a million like of different Star Wars aliens.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, that's why I was like, why is it sewn that way? It also feels like it was maybe overly complicated for what it. But I don't know.
I'm sure there's a way it can be done.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want the Gwen's like sword thing.
Well, speaking of Gwen, the other thing that surprised me in this episode of like, oh wow, they're already gonna show us this. Oh wow, we're already getting this. Oh wow, they didn't wait too long for this. The whole thing with like her memory being restored. I'm glad that they didn't draw that out too long.
Same. I was
That's such a trope. That's such a storytelling trope to be like
pleasantly surprised that she got her memory back so quickly.
Yeah. So and she remembers what the diviner was doing. So now she knows. She tells Zero, "I remember everything." So she knows about the weapon on the ship. So it kind of works out worst case scenario for the heroes, which is somewhat like the best storytelling, because then you have to see them overcome even more obstacles. But they didn't know just long enough for them to infect one Starfleet station. And it's like, oh, we have to never communicate with Starfleet until we can get this fixed. But the optics on that are like really bad. It's like, wow, you destroyed one of our stations, and now when our ships are hailing you, you're not going to pick up the phone.
You just bounced. You were like, gotta go, bye.
Yeah, so y'all look pretty sus right now. So yeah, it's it works out pretty inconveniently for the characters.
They can put like a light out the window and do like Morse code or something.
Yeah, do Morse code. But Janeway seems pretty pissed. I want to talk about Admiral Janeway. The scene of her recreating, I guess this is probably the last time she spoke to Chakotay. The ceremony when they launched the Protostar. He's going back into deep space, back into the Delta Quadrant.
I love this room too. Just it's got that kind of motion picture rec room vibe to it.
Yeah, I was wondering where this is. I don't know if this is like Earth space dock or somewhere similar. This is actually the clip. They showed us this way back in April at Star Trek Mission Chicago. So
did
it's
they
like
put that? They didn't put this clip online, did they?
They never showed it online.
Okay,
so it was only at the
I
convention.
saw a couple people saying they had seen this clip before, and I was like, I somehow missed that, but that makes sense. They only showed it at the convention.
Yeah, but it feels like that was forever ago. So I'm glad I got to finally see it in context. And this is the first time we get Commander Tysus, her, I guess, Andorian first officer. He's voiced by David Diggs. I think most people would know him from he's in Hamilton. He plays Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson, I think.
Yeah, that's what he plays.
I know a little bit of like his indie hip hop music.
Yeah.
But I got big Tuvok vibes from him. Because Tuvok was supposed to be like Janeway's right hand man before the show, and they were long term friends and stuff. But he kind of has like that same seriousness about him. And I love like the idea of that old like concept, like the Andorians being like a little bit more of a warrior species, at least like in the original series and the animated series, and then Enterprise, they're kind of handled that way. So I think he might, he seems to kind of have like that Tuvok vigilance. But I might be reading too much into it. We only get a couple of lines from him. But the Dauntless is already at Tars Lamora in this episode, and yeah, they're right behind.
They travel much faster than they did in Voyager.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have that slipstream drive on this ship.
Yeah,
and the Protostar has lost its fast traveling abilities, right? Because they only had one jump left. A couple episodes ago, is like we either go to the Federation and warn them, or we go to Tars Lamora and rescue the slaves. We can only do one. We can't do both trips, and they chose to rescue the slaves. So they're at a major disadvantage. I'm sure at some point they'll get their high velocity capabilities replenished, but in the meantime, I think the Dauntless is going to be right behind them. And then I don't know what's going on with the Diviner. They find the Diviner floating there in space. So I guess his mind is going to still be scrambled and stuff. But
I know, I could tell they were like, "Oh, we should get him down." I wanted to do that like Monster Inc. thing of like, put that thing back where you got it. So help me God. Like,
yeah, or is he gonna have his memory lost? Also, is he going to be kind of in a similar amnesia? Like, maybe he's nice when if he doesn't remember that he hates the Federation. Maybe he's a nice guy.
I wouldn't mind if he keeps his memory gone for a little bit, because I think that would be dramatic tension if he ever does get it back.
Right, then you'll be like, oh shit, I hope this guy doesn't get his memory back, because then he's going to be like a major asshole again. In fact, it would behoove him to encourage Janeway to go find the Protostar.
Yeah.
And to help her find it so that it could infect the Dauntless. But yeah, and we briefly get to hear Jason Alexander as Dr. Noam, the Tellarite Andorian. He just says something like, "Oh, a life sign detected ahead" or something like that. But it was just cool. Oh, Jason Alexander back in Star Trek after his one appearance in Voyager many years ago, and he's a diehard fan. A lot of people know him for his love of the original series. And he impersonated Kirk. He played like a version of Kirk in like some parody or something at some point, or a Saturday Night Live skit or something. I've seen him in like a gold Kirk uniform at some point in my life. Or I don't know, maybe I imagined that, but I think it happened. Someone will correct me.
It's the internet, of course they will.
Yeah,
true. Also, I love the scene between Janeway and Chakotay. My little shipper heart was so happy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know that you fell into what is it? The J plus C camp.
Yeah, I think that's. I don't think there's like a ship name.
Yeah, I don't know what would be a cute one, like a Jane Cote. Like I don't know, Chakotay.
Chakotay. Yeah.
They have. I started Voyager knowing people shipped them, and I didn't see it until that episode where he built their bathtub, and I was like, "Oh, I'm on board now."
That is the strongest. That is the strongest episode to make that case, I think. But you know what? I respect Kate Mulgrew's choice to keep things platonic between those two characters.
Get it. However, she's not his boss anymore. That's all I'm gonna say.
Sure, but I would so much rather see them together than see Chakotay. I never want to see Chakotay and 7 of 9 in the same room ever again. Actually, like, I don't want those two characters to be in the same episode ever again.
Like, I believe once my friend's response to them together was they both have more chemistry with Janeway.
Yes, yeah, I could. Either one of them with Janeway makes more. Well, I don't know. Like Janeway and 7 kind of have like a mother-daughter dynamic. That might be a little weird, but definitely Chakotay and Janeway.
That's not like the thing I ship, but I do get it, especially in the 90s when there was not any like LGBT like representation. Sure. People had to get it where they could like find it where they could get it.
I was wanted to. I was the unshipper. I like unshipped Chakotay.
Aaron, I know you're joking, but
no,
no, not you, Aaron Walkie in the comments.
What does he say now? Aaron Walkie in the live audience is saying, "Just wait until we reveal Janeway and Neelix get married off camera." Oh wow, that would.
Didn't they leave Neelix with the Delta Quadrant?
But they could get back now.
They got fast ships, so
she's like, "I'm coming, Neelix."
Didn't we leave him with a
partner? I'm coming for you, Neelix.
Is Janeway gonna like break up Neelix's little family?
Oh yeah. He had like a wife and a stepson on that little colony. Home wrecker Janeway strikes again.
I guess
she's been vindictive of the woman who stole Mark away.
There are Voyager novels that Janeway and Chakotay get married in.
I've always wanted like Tom Paris to come up. It's like, we're surprised you two never got together, and then look at each other like, that's not kissing my brother or something like that, and they just be like, they like either of them had no idea, but like I don't know. But yeah, I think it was just because so many people were so for it that I have that response of like going the opposite direction where I'm like, no. Also, I feel like she deserves somebody with a personality or more of a personality.
I feel it. Well, some stuff of Chakotay is people. They should have read the stuff about him being native better. That's all I can. Like.
Well, yeah, there's a whole story of that.
I know.
Well, we have the opportunity to correct that now.
Yes,
that
would be. I would love if they were able to go and
that would be great.
Expand on that in a less cliche way.
The fact that like TAS had a better Native American representation and How Sharper Than a Serpent's Tooth, which is like not that deep at all. It's like it's kind of scary.
I have a friend who like her mother's side of her family is Native, and she was starting to watch Voyager, and I was like, before you go, I've got to warn you about something.
Oh no.
I was like, one, because even before you get to the episodes, they're not calling him Native. Like, so that's like a whole thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it's not going to get better. I'm sorry. Like,
It's like, take everything that you've kind of watched on 70s television and glue it together, and that's what they gave him as his cultural background.
But yeah, Aaron Walke, part of me wants to say, like, I don't envy you in your job because you have to try to handle things like, yeah, how do we write Chakotay and Janeway and have this, be satisfied when a lot of people like want to see them happily married and a lot of people don't, and we gotta write something that's like good for everyone. And but I say
be true to the
part of me wants to
characters.
say I don't envy you, but I envy the hell out of anyone who works on official Star Trek. I think that's awesome. So I can't say that too much, but yeah, I'm very curious to see what happens on Prodigy with Chakotay and Janeway, and I'm glad that they're moving things along there on that front. I love the Protostar, I love those kids, but my old school Star Trek heart is always going to be curious. Well, what are these legacy characters up to? So thank you for showing us some of that. Right off the bat, didn't make us wait too long for it, and I am very very eager to see what happens next. Do either of y'all have any final thoughts on this episode before I run through the Gorn eggs we got here?
I think it made me excited for like the next episode. It's just like it's like, oh, okay, you've set up a lot of good stuff and you paid off the stuff that came before it. So it's one of those, like, it's not like, well, I can come back to it or later if I, but no, it's like, no, where's the next episode?
Yes, that is very true, Aaron Walke. I loved the episode, and I was worried that, like, I was worried because of how long it had been, that I was like, oh, I hope I am still as into Prodigy as I remember being, and I was like somehow even more into it than I remember being. And I was like, okay, I'm so ready to see where the rest of the season goes.
I'm excited for Jamil.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot she was going to be on the show.
Yeah. Because that's her there in the
right. Ensign Asencia, I believe is how you say the character's name. But yeah, the Trill Ensign. And Aaron Walke Aaron Walke in our live audience was saying in response to our conversation, I think one thing everyone can agree on is that Janeway and Chakotay had a very rich and complicated relationship, and they were very close and would do anything for one another. Aaron, that is a beautiful example of how to straddle the line and appease both sides. But no, well said, elegantly said. No wonder you're a writer, and again, it's really cool that you're showing up here and being part of the conversation.
Check out the
with us.
Harry Kim.
I really appreciate you coming in here. This is it's really cool.
Yeah, and apparently we have Fleet Admiral Kim to look forward to. I think that was just a cheeky remark, but we'll see what happens. Oh no, that's okay, because Janeway is like a 3-star admiral. She's like a vice admiral, right? So at some point we know that Jellicoe is going to show up. He's a 4-star admiral. So Jellicoe is going to show up and be like, Janeway, no, you need to do this. I'm ordering you to turn that ship around and do this. And then we hear Garrett Wong's voice from like off screen. He's going to be like, not so fast, Jellicoe. Then he walks out with 5 like the biggest pips you've ever seen on his collar. And Fleet Admiral Harry Kim is going to be like, no, you listen here, Jellicoe. You take orders from me.
I would pay money for that.
God, poor Harry. He deserved a promotion.
His time is coming. I don't think Star Trek is done with Harry Kim. I
hope
think
not.
I think we got more Harry in the future.
He deserves to be around.
Hey, he was an ensign for 7 years, but poor Travis and Hoshi on Enterprise were ensigns for 10 years.
That's true.
I don't.
They had it a little worse.
God, poor Travis, just never used. Yeah. I don't like.
I want a Captain Proton animated show.
Well, Robert Duncan McNeil's trying to get a short trek or something. So
oh, that'd be cool. Yeah,
he's advocated for it.
I hope short treks come back. I think it was probably hard to make them during the pandemic because it was hard to get the main shows done. But I like the idea of just short.
I love the idea
stories.
of them. But in
Yeah.
execution, I don't think they were very good. If Short Treks was a show, it'd be my least favorite Star Trek show.
Mm.
I mean, I enjoyed a lot of them, but I just love the idea of just like, hey, we're just gonna like come and like see what's up with like a couple people.
I think an anthology show is a good idea. I think it'd be better if they could do like a little bit longer, if they could do like 20 or 30-minute long episodes.
Yeah.
And I think if you had it animated, that would cut down on the budget because then you wouldn't have to worry like, reusing sets and props and stuff. I would love like an animated anthology show. I think would be a
that
wonderful
would be cool.
thing.
Maybe
That would be
something
cool.
like with Marvel just did with I can't remember the name of it.
The Marvel What Ifs.
No, so it wasn't animated, but Marvel just did. Oh my god!
Oh, like those Marvel one shots that they have on.
Yeah, but they just did one. Shoot, I can't. It was like Halloween themed.
Oh yeah, their Werewolf by Night thing.
Yes, something like that, which was like just about an hour, and it was like a fully like contained story.
Yeah, it's interesting. For a long time, Paramount Plus, they were talking about how they wanted to have Star Trek on the air or streaming, I guess I should say, year round, and that
Well, we're there now.
Yeah, so like I think we've reached that point. So I don't know if they're gonna like really feel like it's a priority to do things like Short Treks. I think that was like we only have like one show, and people stop subscribing whenever Discovery's on a hiatus. So how do we keep like these Trek nerds around? So I don't know if it'd be like a priority for them, but I definitely think that there's potential there with the idea.
All that being said, movies on the channel.
Yeah, we need our movies back from HBO. But I heard some inside stuff on that, and apparently that was like an old deal, and that it's probably not going to be till 2024 before they even have the option to keep everything.
Wow.
At home on Paramount Plus.
Like, maybe I wonder if HBO has a deal specifically like we get them at Christmas.
Yeah, it's going to be for a limited time starting Tuesday, November 1st, but it's only going to be for a few months.
Yeah, I wonder if it's HBO has the right to air them, and I wonder if it's like a TV deal, like we air the Star Trek movies during the holidays.
Yeah, yeah, could be something like that, but yeah, a lot of these deals are signed years in advance. So the only reason why Disney was able to pull all like Marvel, for example, and like all the other Disney content, the only reason why they were able to pull all that stuff home to Disney Plus is they bought out these contracts. They would be like, Netflix, I know that we signed this deal with you, but we're going to pay you, whatever whatever you paid us to, undo this contract or whatever. So, and unfortunately, Paramount does not have anywhere close to the amount of capital that Disney has.
And also, the Disney, like the backlog of like Disney animated stuff was really not streaming anywhere. So they just already had that to be like, you all want to watch the classic Disney movies? Great.
I think their Marvel stuff was the main thing they were trying to round up.
It was probably like Marvel and Star Wars were the big things.
But all that out of the way, I got some Gorn eggs. Again, those are the Easter eggs in jokes and continuity connections to go through in this episode. Starting off with the Aqua Shuttle we mentioned earlier. A similar vehicle was shown in Star Trek the Animated Series episode. I always say this word wrong. Ambergris element.
Ambergris.
Ambergris.
Ambergris. Yep.
Ambergris element.
It's a whale. It's like whale fat.
Yeah, I know what it like. I've seen it written in like Moby Dick and stuff. It's like not a word I ever hear people say out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like gristle. I always think of like ambergris. So it's like
the relay station they visit. That's similar to a communication relay station we saw in the TNG episode Aquil. They had relay station 47.
No. Yeah, that's right.
Not a good episode.
I love the station though. The design of this is really cool.
The station was cool. And the protostar is able to connect with kind of a force field tube, similar to what Discovery and Enterprise used to hook up in the Discovery Season 2 episode, Such Sweet Sorrow.
You think that they, given that especially there's like the protostar, that it could get significantly closer.
Yeah, or just
that, like just rotate and like go up against it.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
what
'cause
like
I
we
assume because
typically
that
do. But
that whatever's hanging off there comes out pretty far. So I assume they're trying not to hit that.
But I mean, if it was, yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
Because I think if it was right up next to it, it would like be going into the thing that's sticking out of it.
it would also, kill the dramatic tension. So
Yeah.
it's like I'm sure it's done on a.
No, I don't know what this
first
thing
reason.
is called. Whatever the thing that's like perpendicular to it, that's
Oh,
sticking
like
out of the
the
station. I think it
antenna
would like
kinda
slam
thing.
into that if it was right next to the thing.
That could be.
yeah, kind of awkward. The protostar is kind of just barely too big to be able to get closer, I guess. But on board the station, we see like a lot of familiar flags and insignias and stuff. We have the Federation flag, Starfleet Command flag, and then like a lot of the computer displays. They have like some of the old school graphics, like the science department logo that was, I think, first appeared in Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Of course, Murph, his secret species, has finally been revealed. He is a melanoid slime worm, which was established in the Next Generation episode Coming of Age. Rondon the Zaldin called Wesley Crusher a slime worm. Dow is suspected to be a Sakari or a Talaxian by Frex. Of course, he turns out to be neither, but those were both species introduced in Star Trek Voyager. The Sakari were the people that lived in the caves, and a weird episode of Voyager, Blood Fever, where Tuvok, I'll always remember it as the episode where Tuvok orders Paris to have sex with B'Elanna. When Tom is like, she's not in her right mind, I can't do this, and Tuvok's like, if you don't do it, she dies. Like, I'm ordering you to Ponfar with B'Elanna. And then Talaxian, of course, is Neelix's species. The what do you call it?
I also love
Christening?
because he looks nothing like Neelix.
Yeah, he really doesn't. Christening, that's what you call it when you break the bottle of champagne on the ship, right? They're not using champagne, they're using Picard Chateau wine. But
is the Picard vineyard supposed to be in the Champagne region of France? Can they make champagne?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
I don't think
probably.
so, though.
I don't know. I don't know exactly where France is supposed to be, and I don't really
I'm assuming
understand how
that law
champagne
would
works.
probably still continue into the 25th century.
Yeah.
But that was all the Gornegs I found in this episode of Prodigy. But yeah, I'm looking forward to what happens next. I'd be very curious what people in our audience, or the people that weren't able to check this out live but are listening or watching later, what you thought about these episodes, especially now that we have the entire season of Lower Decks wrapped up. What did people think of season 3 of Lower Decks as a whole? And if you want to sound off on that, we might share your comments in future content, but you can reply to my tweets on Twitter or join the Tex-Trek Discord server. There's an invite link in the description wherever you're watching or listening to this, and we'll let you in, or you can look up the Tex-Trek Facebook page and sound off there. But I'm always curious to hear what people are thinking about these episodes, and please come back next week. We are going to be talking about a classic, iconic Star Trek enemy race, the Borg, because next week's episode is titled "Let Sleeping Borg Lie," and I am terrified about these sweet innocent children going up against the scary Borg.
I was like, I hope they run into 7. I hope that's what it is.
Yeah, maybe we could connect with like the Fenris Rangers. I would love like if these shows could start, cool. Interconnecting a little. I think we're getting like that era of Star Trek has been around long enough. I think those connections are going to start forming.
Get that with Strange New World and Lower Decks.
We're getting that crossover in the spring.
Not what the shows I expected to cross over at all.
No.
I think it was hard because at first nothing was in the same era, but some things are now.
True.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on in like late 24th century, early 25th century. So there's definitely a lot of crossover potential. But yeah, it's a lot of cool stuff to look forward to.
The CW DC stuff where they would all just cross over once a year.
Oh yeah. Crisis and all this. Yeah, that'd be fun.
After they do it 2 or 3 times, it starts to feel kind of forced and inorganic.
Yeah, just do it once.
We do have a 1000th episode coming up
That would be great.
A few years, we're gonna hit the 1000th episode. So if you're gonna do like a big like Avengers Endgame level, like everyone just bring in like just have.
Is it Timelines? That game does that, right? Where they bring all the people together.
Oh yeah,
that'd be the time to do it, I think. So Alex, I know that you check out Tex-Trek. That's you can have that idea for free. I'm telling you, like, do something big for the 1000th episode. If you want to pay me for that, that's cool too. But you don't have to. That's all I'm saying.
Just name a ship after you.
Yeah, have the USS Fathery show up. Don't make it a Texas class though. I don't want it to be automated. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. And special thanks to Aaron Welke for stopping by. I hope you come back next week, Aaron, because I want to talk Borg with you. But until next week, as always, everyone, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. And follow Fathery on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.